interracial slave owners. So even your narrative that you just tried to paint of the 1,500 or so black people that own slaves is still false.
What do you mean it's false?
I just broke it down.
You just said 1,500. You just said 1,500 black people who own slaves, and that's false. So what's false about it?
Okay, bro, you just
I don't know. This isn't a white-black issue. That's all I'm saying. The institution of slavery was something that took place in the Americas. It took place in Europe. It took place all throughout the Middle East. It took place all throughout Africa. And it still takes place in Africa. Okay? So this practice, it really originated in Africa. And I think that's what we really need to do. Africans invented slavery. Then they taught the Arabs, okay, who also taught the Southern Asians at a point in time, okay, who then went on to teach the Portuguese and the Spanish and the Spaniards, who then went on to pass that on to when you look at England and the Americas.
Well, hold on, let me stop you. Hold on. So you said another thing that was, again, false. The actual first slaves was in Mesopotamia, not Africa. Where did you get that they was in Africa first?
I'm talking about contemporary history. I'm talking about the transit. Let me be specific. I'm not going back thousands of years. I'm not going back thousands of years. I'm going back hundreds of years, not thousands of years.
Stop lying.
Because when we go back thousands of years, that's when it gets confusing. So I'm talking about the Trans-Saharan slave trade, which didn't end until 1960. I'm talking about the East African slave trade, and I'm talking about the Transatlantic slave trade. I'm talking about those three slave trades. That's what I'm talking about. Now, if you really want to get on race, then let's talk about the Barbary slave trade, which took place in North Africa, that was targeting European sailors. Let's talk about that. They were kidnapping Europeans and enslaving them in North Africa. So if you want to talk about, let's talk about that.
Oh, you crazy.
I'm sorry, but what does that have to do with white fatigue?
Because white fatigue, based on the understanding I have, white fatigue is about white people being fed up, having to hear about racism and how bad white people are and how much bad they've done. To me, that's what I was told the definition of white fatigue is. If it means something else, please educate.
You're thinking of black.
I'm suffering from white fatigue listening to you.
White fatigue has to do with being tired of the practices of white people, their culture, their habits. Just like, it's not that you hate them for the color of their skin or hate them. It's not, you don't hate them rationally. You just find their culture tiresome and their behavior is tiresome. So when they 400 years of slavery, and then the second the boot's off the neck, it's like, oh, kumbaya, guys, no hard feelings, right, bubs? Like, that's like kind of tiresome. And then just like this constant oh, I'm gonna be treated like a second-class citizen in a country I've been in for hundreds of years. That's fucking white fatigue, it's just, we're just sick of some of this shit. Is what white fatigue is.
Okay, so the definitions have taken on new meanings since TikTok.
Black,
it used to mean,
you're thinking of black.
I know, but they used to be the opposite. Like, they used to be, I don't know. It used to be the opposite. Black fatigue used to be black people saying that they were tired of being in, I guess, predominantly white spaces and not feeling seen or whatever. And then white fatigue used to mean white people were tired of black people, discussing racism and all of that, and the legend that their ancestors were slave owners. So I see that it has taken on new definitions since TikTok, and so I will follow the definition that you have given. I appreciate that.
What's the difference between your definition and the definition
I was going to mention.
It's the opposite.
So what did he say that's opposite to your definition?
Because if you Google white fatigue right now, it talks about, it's my definition, which deals with white people being tired of being accused of racism, having to have these discussions about race, being made out to be villains in this narrative.
And what did he say that was different from that? Because I missed that.
I'll let him speak for himself.
Okay.
So in the sociological literature, black fatigue refers to black folks being
We're talking about white fatigue here. How did we get to black fatigue?
Can I make my statement, please, sir?
Okay.
All y'all can make statements really, but not yourself. In sociological jargon, black fatigue refers to black folks being tired of dealing with racism and white supremacy. It comes from sociological jargon, and some people are making up their own definitions of it. That's not the scientific approach. So now, how can it be reversed if it's coming from that sociological jargon? You see, these are attempts to shift the narrative. These are informal fallacies. They try to redefine things to have different definitions. And you want to attack an argument no one making. These are games of reasoning. You got to be careful here.
Yeah, they've taken on new definitions.
No, I'm
Sam,
sorry,
what were you saying? The definition?
Okay. Is it possible, ASR? So what about white fatigue? Because you just told us a whole bunch of stuff about black fatigue. I thought we were talking about white fatigue.
I'm saying white fatigue is a response to that sociological fatigue called black fatigue. So what's happening now is that now this has been exposed by white folks like Joe Fagan, Peggy McIntosh about racism and white supremacy. There's been a counter movement to not deal with that argument and then coming up with concepts like white fatigue. Even a lady is saying it's changing. It's changing because it's not scientific. So if you look at the bigger picture, you have think tanks that put this out to the communities. That's all they do.
Changing because languages change and words change meaning all the time. There's nothing that fixes like references in language. People just change what they mean by terms all the time. That's why it's not some sort of like conspiracy. It's just that's how language.
No, I'm saying you have
just
to think
have to use language. Now, I made this room because I wanted to. People accuse me of only talking about black people and Muslims, and that I wanted to talk about white people and have black people have a space to sort of like air their grievances. And I wanted to sort of have, that conversation of like criticism of white culture because I thought it was like an interesting change of pace, and it was interesting for me to sort of explore that. I don't usually do this, like say things in defense of criticizing white culture and European history. I'm usually doing the sort of anti-woke stance, so it was interesting for me to take the kind of like the pro-woke stance, the pro-criticizing whiteness, criticizing European history stance. When I was doing it, I was noticing that I was like omitting things. So I would bring up like all the horrors of Europe, but I would never bring up like, the great things about Western culture, things that I love, things like, separation of church and state and like the legacy of Greek philosophy and the Roman philosophy and the Christian tradition, the Christian philosophical tradition, like property rights, like there's lots of like the scientific method, the Industrial Revolution, like Kant, Mill. I wasn't bringing those things up, even though I think they're really valuable. I think that, like, if we're going to discuss what we dislike about certain cultures, we should also either we shouldn't do it at all, or if we say the things we don't like, probably we should also say the things we do like to give us a sense of perspective and fairness. Like, it's not the case that any culture is just nothing but badness, Everything has its pros and cons in life. For us to not become ideologues, we have to sort of be able to be aware of both the good and the bad of things.
What are you talking about, Sam? You saying there's good people on both
So,
sides?
Sam, do you mind repeating what the definition of the title is?
Okay, what I meant by white fatigue in the title is black people and people of color being tired of white people's bullshit, because I was making fun of the term black fatigue, which refers to white people being tired of, like, oh, another black person complaining about racism, another black person not taking responsibility, another black person sort of never focusing on their own issues and only focusing on other people, and that they call that black fatigue. That's what the whites are calling that. So I wanted to sort of like turn it around and say, what are we sick of about white culture, and what are we what tires us about it?
Oh, I would love to answer that. I am sick of white people and white culture taking on everyone else's problems, playing into this narrative that somehow white people are the villains in history, that they're somehow exceptional, have done exceptional harms to people when you look throughout history, various people groups have engaged in slavery, have engaged in colonization efforts, and so I'm sick of white people taking this on, and some white people practicing this white guilt. I'm sick of it.
Okay, why are you sick of it?
Because it's irritating. It's a false narrative, and I personally think it's rooted in some sort of power. Because it's like, are you really ashamed of your history? Or do you want to shove it in everyone's face that, you know, people that were of your skin tone owned slaves? Like, I think it's time to move on and let it go.
Fine. Sister, the reason why I'm asking why you're sick of it is because you do sound like you're sick of it. Are all these white people resting on your bosom? Are you breastfeeding them? Or why are you sick of it? Of the situation?
No, it's quite the opposite.
Okay, so
It's quite the opposite. White people have carried societies, and I'm sick of being carried. I'm sick of it. It feels like infantilization. Like, because I'm of color, I don't have the ability to do for myself.
I don't think there's white people out there saying that they're ready to pay for your mortgage and pay for your school fees.
There are white people sitting there arguing for people who are undocumented migrants who have entered illegally into our country, and they're arguing for the good treatment of them. That has to be tiring.
Yeah, I don't.
You don't have to be the savior.
Okay. I don't think that the argument that white people are making for pro-immigration is centered around their whiteness.
It is. It's centered around their whiteness. It's this idea that because they're white, they have an increased responsibility in society. And I think white people should continue focusing on white people. You know, because
why do you think skin tone has a weight on responsibilities of society? Well, why do you think that?
it's social programming. White people have been made out to be the big bad wolves, and some of their descendants have actually bought into this narrative and feel that they now have to be everyone's savior. You don't. Just focus on saving yourself.
I feel like it sounds like you're auditioning for the role of Aunt Jemima for the whites.
I'm not, though. I'm telling that white people that it's irritating, it's annoying. Like, it's like I said, I feel like it's rooted in some sort of like power or something. Like it's something sick. Like, do you think you're like everyone's parent or what? Like, focus on white people. Don't focus on other people and trying to appease them and make them feel better and trying to repay for the sins of your ancestors.
Why can't white people focus on what they want to focus on as individuals? Why do they have to focus on something specific?
I would agree that any individual should focus on what they want to focus on as an individual. We're speaking now on white people as a collective.
But as a collective, what if they choose to focus on righting the wrongs of slavery?
No, white people that would be a mistake, a huge mistake, because I think white people need to focus. They need to focus on continuing to be white people, because guess what? Part of why I'm here today in America and I have the freedoms I have is because of white activities. I need them to keep being great.
Really?
Sister, how many white Northerners died in the Civil War?
I don't really know the casualties of the Civil War. I'm looking it up.
I think
Yeah,
it was
I'm
like
not challenging you. I'm saying
600 some thousand, but I don't know how many Northerners. I think maybe like
But that wasn't for slavery. That's a misunderstanding. It wasn't about
Okay.
The Civil War was about the Union.
It was
People
about
coming
slavery.
together.
It was
Because you
about
had
slavery.
this Confederacy trying to become their own thing, and it was about the Union. That's why we have today the United States of America, because of the Union. So I understand people try to make it a moral issue, but it's not. White people, you do not have to be the most moral people. Just keep doing what you do. You're very intelligent, and you've changed the world in many ways
just
for
telling
the better.
politics right now.
I have a question.
Yeah, the Civil War was about. Well, wait, hold on. I want to say a couple things. Like, first of all, the Civil War was about slavery. Period. End of fucking story. The other thing was like, take immigration for like current shit that's actually going on, right? I live in California. ICE is out here, like, there's farms around where I live. Like, there's like strawberry fields, there's avocado fields and other kinds of fields, like 10 miles from my fucking house, farmland and shit like that. And there are undocumented immigrants out here working in these fields, and they've been here. A lot of these people have been here for fucking decades. They're not criminals. They're not bad people. They're doing the same fucking shit that our ancestors did when they came here. They just put their fucking head down and they go to work. to make a better life for themselves and their family. The same kind of shit that we, the same kind of ideals that we have. And you mean to tell me that like you're tired, you're fatigued of hearing about that? Like that's some
What do
real
you
shit
mean
going on
they
right
did the same thing as your ancestors? I don't know who your ancestors are, but the white people who founded this country, they actually put in the work. And I'm not talking about physical labor working for somebody else. I mean the work, the brain power to create a nation, to build a nation. These people need to go back home and build their own nations. It's not the same. What they're doing is they're mooching off of a system that was created by some very intelligent white people.
Yeah, but
And then they're trying to guilt you into allowing them to stay here
Your argument is
at the
that
same time.
you have a tunnel vision, right? And you are incapable of hearing anybody else.
No, I hear you.
Okay. I'm not sure why you think that morality has a color, right? What is wrong?
It doesn't.
With, okay, fine.
That's my
What
point.
is wrong? What is wrong with white people who ground their moral values in seeing other human beings as equal to them? What is wrong with that?
I didn't say that nobody wasn't. That's not even what I'm saying.
So when you fine. So when you say you're sick and tired of white people feeling guilty about what happened in slavery, you're sick or tired of white people feeling that they're responsible for slavery and responsible for this, responsible for that. And I'm saying if a white person chooses to engage in that line of thinking, they're using their moral compass to explore whatever they want to explore in terms of like the history of America. And what is wrong with that? The fact that you're saying there's something wrong with that, to me suggests that there's something wrong with you.
Maybe there is something wrong with me.
What is it? Let's get to the bottom of it. What is it?
I don't know. Like I said, I am fatigued by this stuff. I think it's really, it's embarrassing that everyone else can call out racism. Everyone else can say things like black pride and brown pride and Chicano pride.
You know
but
why?
if a white person is to say that, that's an illegal activity.
Fine. You know why there's no need to say white pride, etc. It's because white is by default typically seen as the norm. So what is the point of celebrating the norm if the norm is the actual norm? Like, you don't see that.
Sorry,
Work that had to be put in for white people.
Guys, that was a comma. So on the flip side of that, it's a bit like saying, heterosexual people should have heterosexual pride. That sounds ridiculous.
No, wait, hold on. Just to be clear, a slight addendum. It's not actually, if white people want to do white pride, you can. You just say Irish pride or Jewish pride, you can do that. The problem is, white is not, this construct under white is here in America has been used specifically to oppress people. But if you want to have pride in your quote-unquote whiteness, just have Irish pride or Jewish pride or whatever, the Scottish pride. There's no problem with that. Just do that.
So I would say the same thing for black people. Have Jamaican pride, have Nigerian pride, have Ghanaian pride, but don't say black pride.
No, wait, no, sister.
If you can't say white pride, then you shouldn't be able to say black pride.
Hold on, sister. Here's the difference. I'm black American. That is my ethnic.
So say American pride.
No,
yeah, but
black.
Let me ask this question.
That's my ethnicity.
Most Africans do not have quote unquote black pride. Black pride seems to be exclusive to a sort of black American, African American type of political rhetoric. I don't think I've ever come across an African person who goes around saying, I'm a proud black. Matter of fact, that's why a lot of Africans and African Americans on this app constantly butt heads.
Yeah, you guys don't have that same pathology.
But that's also.
But the white people in America have made the black people feel that it was okay to say that type of
Also
stuff.
because you don't know more than 1 billion Africans, sir. So you don't know all the Africans that come to that side. That's an inductive fallacy.
You don't
But
know
the
all
other
the
thing, though,
African
is
Americans
not
either.
that I
But
was
what's the point?
Hold on. So that means
someone
that
else get in
you
here?
cannot make some type
Let
of
the woman
universal-
speak.
Let's let the white people speak.
Hold on. After the black man. How about that?
So the thing I was trying to say is not that I would support any sort of white pride movement, but I think folks like kind of lose the trail on most white people don't identify with any particular European group either. We're like that mix. It's like what the hell? I'm not. If someone told me to go back to Europe, I wouldn't have any fucking idea where to go. Like it's like I'm not any of those things.
So white and black are sociological jargon. It just describes how power is moved in terms of categories. So when you white folks came up with the term whiteness, it included how you distributed power. So sociologists study that. You can codify that to your stuff. That's why in the Kerner Commission, it explicitly states that white people are responsible for creating the ghettos. This is coming from the highest branch of the government. Lyndon B. Johnson convoked that because clearly laws to you white folks.
Are you responding to Cora, or you're just making a different point?
He's just trying to guilt them.
Can you hear the point first?
No, because that's not how a conversation is had. How can you overlook what somebody has said to have a whole conversation with yourself?
You know, I'm overlooking if I haven't finished my comment.
Okay.
So your person has a knack for not being rational and responding that way.
Okay, and you think it's rational to have a conversation that has no bearing to what the previous.
What are you talking about? I'm making an argument about
the. Make your argument so we can hear it.
So white and black are sociological jargon. This is jargon of sociology, but some of you are not utilizing it properly. That's why you're not understanding. So when they talked about whiteness, it's talking about power distribution based on a pseudoscientific concept of race. Francois Bernier is responsible for introducing that. It's a classification system that's fallacious. He started categorizing people based on biology. The term race was originally applied to livestock. So when you induce that, you introduce a false concept. These elite utilize that.
Okay,
now
I have a question for you.
I use the scientific racialism.
Let's say Cora wanted to go back.
Can I finish my statement, please?
You ain't saying shit. Okay, never mind.
So the problem is, in rational discourse, people are allowed to propound without interruption. You're not trying to be serious here. You're trying to make jokes. This is serious. So you have white men like Huey P. Long, who was a senator, who was trying to stop this. He came up with our Shared Our Wealth program, and they assassinated him. Why? Because he wanted to tax the elite to redistribute wealth amongst poor whites and poor blacks. He was so popular that a Black Panther named Huey P. Newton was named after him. So maybe this white and black stuff is something from the power elite designed to separate us. We know that because BFF's Skinner rat experiment, they show what happens when rats are put into cages. Operant conditioning. You can control them by controlling their environments and their thoughts. The power elite treating the masses pale face and dark face just like rats. You're fighting over stupid labels instead of going after the power elite. You outnumbered them. You got jokes about that?
Okay, fine. So let's say Cora wanted to go back to Europe. Where would you place her in Europe according to the spiel you just gave us?
This has nothing about her going back to.
There you go. So you're having a whole conversation with
You're not understanding me. This is a mentality that she can fix anywhere she goes. So white and black are not meant to be personal. My person.
Yeah, but his whole point was that you weren't responding to what Cora said, which was white people are diversified, and if she were told to go back to Europe, she wouldn't know which part of Europe to go to.
So I'm responding to the fact that that's not
and my intent there was to identify that despite the fact that I'm white, I do have a shared experience of not really having any connection to the place that people claim that I belong, right, instead of here in America. I have no connection to that, much like people that were brought over in the African slave trade have no connection to Africa. There's a lot of assumptions that are made about whiteness that honestly over the last 150 years have just like dissipated. It's just not the case anymore.
I think that's a very valid point. Can I ask a question? Do you think that it would serve, it would be in the best of race relations, right? Like it would bring harmony if Black Americans dropped the black label and they just called themselves Americans?
I think
If everybody did that, if you read what Dr. Sheena Mason is trying to get at, she's trying to get at deracializing like the way we think about things and looking at our shared experiences and relating more on that rather than this artificial construct that's separating us by phenotype. Now, is there black culture? Yeah, but honestly, if you look at the way it's going, it keeps getting more and more integrated into just an overall American culture.
Cora, this is probably the most intelligent argument I've ever heard on this black and white thing on Clubhouse. After 5 years, this is literally the only intelligent thing I've ever heard concerning the matter.
That's because that's
which is unfortunate.
Cora.
Okay, fine. Because if you allowed the people who are hyper emotional, even though they claim not to be, and think that everybody else is, they would not allow you to even make that point because they're so attached to the label of black that they can't see beyond black. But then if you ask them where is black on the map, they don't know where it is either.
That's because you're attacking the imaginary argument. That's not what blackness refers to.
So if you were going to go to black, where would you go on the map?
It's funny
Where?
when you look at his argument. You notice how hypocritical that is? So, if you look at the current...
What is black on the map, though?
Black is a sociological concept, right? In the United States.
Black on the map?
It has different meanings. It's not referring to what y'all talking about. So if you go to the Kerner Commission report, which is a report that Lyndon B. Johnson, as the president, invoked,
Identity that has no location is a useless identity.
Come on now. You just said you won't let people make points, and you're demonstrating. You don't allow people to make points.
Being hyper emotional.
No, I'm not. I'm utilizing logic. So allow me to finish propounding. Lyndon B. Johnson, a president, convoked a commission because 4 years after, or 3 years after the Civil Rights Act, he observed this. Our nation is moving towards two societies, one black and one white, separate and equal. What white Americans have never fully understood, but what the Negro can never forget, is that white society is deeply implicated in the ghetto. White institutions created it, white institutions maintain it, and white society condones it. This is the highest branch of the government, recognizing that whiteness is creating and maintaining these conditions. 3 years after the Civil Rights Act, hasn't it occurred to you that maybe it's necessary for a certain population to be this way to keep the divide going? This is your president saying that. You're making jokes. So the president is saying it. So why is that problem when a black man's repeating the arguments that are sound from your president? They're moving.
Whiteness has also privileged me to live in the best nation in the world.
Do you think
Where do you live in North Korea?
The United States of America. What was Michaela gonna say? Michaela was trying to talk.
Well, I was just gonna ask
Yeah, let this white lady speak.
Hey, crickets, time, folks. You see? Crickets.
I was gonna ask her, the president was recognizing... What?
I said, madam, his name is
Are you a troll? Can you just make a point without mentioning his name?
You don't gotta cut her off. Can we please hear her?
Well, how do you pronounce your name?
It's all said, ma'am.
Arthur. The president was recognizing the conditions at the time. You know, it was just 3 years after they were recognizing what was wrong and trying to change it. Do you think that things have changed since then? Or do we need to hang on to that?
What I'm saying, no.
Good question.
We wouldn't need a 1963 Civil Act if we actually enforced the 13th, 14th, 15th Amendment. The fact that also we had a Civil Rights Act, and then 3 years later, it's not being respected. It shows that, and for whiteness, laws are not enforced. And any law that's not enforced is nugatory.
50 years later, are those laws being enforced?
You're missing the whole point, ma'am. Whiteness just makes paper laws. They don't enforce them. They still hear the disparities. It just looks different on the surface.
The inability to create an identity beyond
black folks are still fundamentally doing what their hair came in to do.
Having a whole conversation with
White
yourself.
folk. You notice how, gentlemen, you can only speak freely, but no one else can, sir? That's not rational.
Okay, yeah, you're a victim. We get it.
Those are your emotions,
Okay,
sir.
okay.
So I'm giving sociological critique to have a rational discussion with the good white folks because this is a game. This is a game. So we know about that Bacon Rebellion. This is a game. We know that how they killed the Kennedy brothers. Any type of person that's trying to
You
unify
have
the masses.
poor listening skills. She asked you if the times have changed.
And that's already answered it.
No, you didn't. You're going off on a tangent and you're rambling.
And it's still the same. So your person has poor listening skills, sir.
No, you're
That's not
hyper emotional and you make
This is not hyper-emotional.
detailed arguments.
Notice
you circle
how-
around the solar system
Sir, I already
to
answered
make
the
a
question.
small minuscule point.
I already answered the question. I said it hasn't changed. So instead of attacking my person, deal with the argument. your sociological definition. I showed you how the government is admitting to it. Who's not calm? You haven't demonstrated how I said anything wrong. So you people have a problem.
Zero self-awareness.
Police.
No, we don't have.
So why don't you deal with the argument?
Yeah. Well, I just want to say really quick that
What argument?
I think that white culture has a lot of good things going for it. I think there's a lot of historically horrible things that Europeans did. A lot of people historically did lots of horrible things. The Arabs did the slave trade that killed millions of black people. Asians did lots of horrible things to each other throughout history. The Mongolians were horrible. They genocided whole peoples, made towers of skulls. Tamerlane killed millions of people, made towers of skulls.
Tamerlane is the motherfucking man.
You know what's amazing about being a mod is I can just move people to the audience.
He's a troll.
It's incredible how much I can just move people to the audience in the industry. And I think it's on one hand good for people to acknowledge the shitty things that their ancestors did, but I feel like we should also acknowledge the good things they did, and then also we should not demonize people and not say that they're responsible for what their ancestors did. I don't know, it's kind of a tricky balancing thing where people should know their history, understand the sort of pros and cons of think about a German. A German should be aware that Hitler existed and did horrible stuff, and that was a horrible thing they did. But then also they should be also aware that Kant was really cool, and Beethoven was really cool, and Bach was really cool, and Goethe was really cool. And Germans have contributed a lot culturally to European history, and they weren't just a bunch of monsters throughout history. And if you just try to define Germanists as merely the Nazis, you're gonna miss out on millions of people's lives and what they did and what they were about.
Germany.
But I don't know. So I think that there's worthy criticisms of white people, and white people should acknowledge the horrible shit that their ancestors have done, but it shouldn't lead into demonization, and it shouldn't lead to you not acknowledging the good things.
No one.
Can I say something?
That's not sophisticated.
You guys can tell when I'm done talking when I'm silent.
Wait, can you hear me?
Yeah, what's up, Jose?
I was gonna say but I think you can be up on the kind of idiot victimologist straw man. I'm just you shouldn't be punished for the sins of your father, kind of thing. But I think the reality is I think most people have the intuition that if an individual joined an organization that historically has been for instance, let's say someone joined the KKK or something, but they joined under the impression that actually it was this reformed organization that is historically bad. I mean, it seems like we would kind of condemn them for it, right? We would condemn them for being complicit or contribute to some kind of institutional organization that has been historically racist and is still kind of foundationally kind of racist, right? And even if there were some reforms put in place, it just seems like it would be reasonable to say the person who joined the KKK is a bad person, because what you actually should be doing is just condemning the KKK and just not joining the KKK and forcing the KKK to become defunct. That just seems like the only reasonable position to take. Not let's just reform the Klan. It seems bizarre. And I think a lot of people have this intuition about white people that don't call out systemic oppression, that they're privileged in that way, that they can just completely deny it, go on living their life and just pretend everything's hunky-dory. And I think that's the kind of critique that you should be contending with. Not the idiot idea where you just got this ignorant person who even if your father wasn't a slave owner, you were a slave owner spiritually. You're a spiritual slave owner, and I'm a spiritual slave. Obviously those people aren't interesting to talk to. But I think the white privilege kind of issue is more complicated than you're giving credit.
Yeah.
Excellent.
I think that one difficulty with these conversations is there's a huge empirical disagreement about what are the causes of poverty. Now, I have my tapestry model that everything is causally relevant, and I think a lot of times these conversations, when people say call out white supremacy, they're thinking that things like microaggressions, I don't know, I think they sometimes over exaggerate the extent in which white people cause the poverty of black people. And then because of that, it's an empirical question, not merely a moral question, that whole debate becomes incredibly acrimonious. So, like, I mean, how much does single motherhood, how much does culture of honor, how much does education, and evaluation of education, how much do those things contribute to poverty? Probably some. And how much is...
Oh, wait, hold on, Sam. You have a lot of opinions for someone that hasn't studied this stuff, man. Why do you have so many opinions about... Why do you have so many opinions about stuff you don't know about?
Just like the Greeks.
But yeah, like I mean, but like it doesn't only have to be kind of economics, huh?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just like, but nevertheless, like, just think that I actually wasn't really kind of forwarding an argument. I was just saying like that. It seems to me is just the more kind of interesting objection. Just like this other stuff. This other stuff I think is like kind of really flimsy at best, because you could just give them examples of like, okay, I don't know, some kind of historic crime, or some kind of whatever that like your ancestor is responsible for. Like, can we hold you responsible? I think most people would be like, yeah, no, I don't think so. So it's like, okay, completely undermines this principle. That's retarded.
Wait, hold on. I don't know your name, dude. What's your name, dude?
Timothy.
Okay. I was just going to make sure I'm on the same page here. So I'm asking you a direct question. Should Black Americans get reparations?
Depends what you mean by reparations. I can see some ideas. I have some idea of reparations, but like, yeah, if you mean like direct kind of payments, like for instance, whatever the modern day equivalent of 40 acres and a mule is to every descendant of a slave, then no. I don't think that's probably stupid.
Okay, we'll do this real simple. Did Jews deserve reparations?
But some did, yeah.
Wait. So Jews deserve reparations, but
like if there's a fucking Nazi safe that's holding like some painting that was owned by Sam's uncle, and the fucking Allies retrieved it, yeah, give the guy his fucking painting back, bro.
Okay, great. So I got you. Okay, great. We're on the same page there. So all the labor that was stolen by Black American, my ancestors, right? All the different inventions, all the different stuff that was stolen.
No, I don't think.
Hold on. Let me finish.
No, I understand. Like, I'm not anticipating what you're saying. No, I'm responding to what you're saying.
You've been interrupted.
Yeah, I get the point. I get the point. Yeah, so you're saying, like, for instance, no, I don't think that what we should do is calculate the labor costs of like some dude in Auschwitz and say like, oh, he worked 36 hours for and this is what he's owed by the state of Germany in perpetuity. Like, no, I don't think that's like how that should work.
Okay, but they did that. So what they did was, so do you understand how much money did they? Wait, hold on. Do you understand how much money they paid Jews in the first place? Number one, and then number two. On top of that, do you know that Black Germans that had nothing to do with the Holocaust had to pay their taxes to these reparations? You understand that? When Black Germans themselves had to receive, they also got killed in the Holocaust. You understand that?
I'm not. Just to be clear, I'm not an American, and I'm not like opposed to Black people. You're just asking me, do I think they should get it? And yes, I do think they should get reparations, just not in the form of a direct check.
I'm actually attacking the consistency of your argument. I'm going down the line of thinking you're using on why Jews should get it and why Blacks shouldn't.
I mean, I very much doubt you are, but let me humor you and just say, like, you do think there's an argument being presented. I'm interested to know what precise argument you think has been presented to you.
I'm talking about your answers. You specifically said.
You just said you're attacking my argument.
Wait, why do you keep interrupting me every time you ask me a question?
Because you're not answering my question.
Yeah, okay. What's your question? And then don't interrupt me.
What is my argument precisely?
Your argument precisely is Black Americans. You believe it shouldn't be payment reparations. It should be done in a certain type of way, which you didn't articulate. But then you also said Jews that were victims of Holocaust or their families should receive reparations. Correct?
Sorry, say that again. Sorry.
Oh, fucking hell.
No, I'm so sorry. No, genuinely, I apologize. I let someone overtake me and they were like communicating with someone.
Quite simply, you believe Jews and their families that were victims of the Holocaust should receive reparations, yes?
Some shit, I said something else, some shit there.
Wait. I articulated what you said. Are you saying that? Okay, you articulated. Who should receive reparations?
No, I did. I think you got it right. Like I gave the example of the painting, and then you wanted to analogize the painting to labor, and I wanted to show you why labor is distinct from, let's say, some specific asset that they possessed. And I gave an example of the Auschwitz laborer not having the intuition that they should get. They should be remunerated for every hour they spent in the death camp.
I want to make sure. Just to make sure I'm clear. So you don't believe Jews should have got reparations, only the ones that their items were stolen. Is that your position?
What do you think some means, just out of interest?
I'm asking you, I'm trying to get clarity.
I'm just doing a competence check because I may answer it again and you may not understand it for the third time. So what do you think some means? You think some means all of them?
I tell you, I have you out here since you have low IQ. So some could mean a myriad of things. It could mean a group of people that were specifically their families, or it could mean you just mean some Jews and you're not identifying who these people are, or it could mean only the ones that their items was taken. Some could mean a myriad of things. Are you not smart enough to understand that that's what your language entails?
No.
Oh fucking yeah, this dude, man.
Empathy.
I think that's reserved. I think that's reserved for the extra specially intelligent people like you. I do not have a mastery or grasp of the language like you do, sir. Like some in that context does not mean myriad things to me. It means pretty much not fucking all of them.
Yeah.
Evidently,
So
I'm not I'm not a super genius.
This is the point.
I'm not super genius.
Who are the some?
I'm not super genius like you are.
Who's the some?
Like the guy
why
are you shouting? Why are you shouting? The guy with the painting man, screaming man. The Jew who has the painting.
Okay.
Screaming.
Okay, so only Jews with paintings. Got it. Those are the only ones.
7-year-old, bro. What the fuck is wrong with you?
Wait, hold on.
Painters, you gotta.
So I have two grandfathers. Both of them were affected by the Holocaust.
man with the
piano.
Just to be clear, McZed, my position is that all Jews should have got reparations. That's my position.
I'll just tell you a little bit as to how it played out. One grandfather on my father's side came from Czechoslovakia, and he was from a poor Hasidic family that got rounded up, and he went to a work camp. He was in one of the death camps. But my other grandfather, he was a native of Germany. His family was born there, and they had several properties that we have records of. We know that they were dispossessed, they were kicked out, the family was dispersed. My grandfather only came from one branch of that family line, and they got spread or killed variously. But what's interesting is that my grandfather from Germany successfully got reparations because he was a German citizen. They could recognize him. They understood his family. And he lived off, or rather they sent him a pension that he got for A, working in Germany, B, being displaced by the war, and C, he inherited one from his wife, my grandmother, who was also affected by the Holocaust, because that's how they set up the reparations. But the reparations were narrowed to him because he worked in Germany, he could prove it, and his wife, who was also affected by the war.
Yeah, and I like that. And let me be clear, my position is probably more radical than most Jews' position. My position is since it affected so much of your population, all of them deserve it. That's my position personally. But so anyway, in respect to what you just said, McZed, I'm cool with that. I would apply the same exact things to Black Americans. If your family was directly impacted or enslaved, those are the ones that should get it. It's the same position. Like the ones that was enslaved, your family. That's it.
No, but there isn't a difference anyway, like just in terms of degrees of separation from like you receiving a pension from the state that like at least by the standards of international law criminally persecuted you directly, like you were the direct victim of this persecution, and also you had all of your goods and assets pilfered by the state, presumably still have access to these assets. It's like it's different from them being
Matrix stepbrother.
Yeah, man. That's God. That's God.
Like some equivalent monetary
compensation,
and then being compensated. Oh shit.
One thing that I just want to have an answer to is just but one thing I just want to have an answer to is just I can hear you. But what can me as a white guy in America do to be sort of like more morally responsible towards like being aware of what happened? Like what is a white like me to do? Am I supposed to say like I don't know, just be knowledgeable of history? I don't know. I guess people want to say just like support reparations. Like, I guess
as many as you can. The truth.
Wait, can I finish? Can I finish before you go?
All right, go for it, Timothy. What's up?
No, I just wanted to say, look, I think there is something to be said about the sort of degrees of separation between the individual, like McZed's I think he said his grandfather or his great grandfather, because in that case, you have somebody who basically is essentially was the direct victim of some like criminal persecution from a state and criminal at that point in history by like this like international law, this like newly established kind of international legal standards, right? And so now as a consequence, you know, all of the assets that were pilfered from him, he's either going to receive, those are either going to be returned to him, or he's going to receive sort of direct, some kind of equivalent monetary compensation, or then similarly, like there's going to be some kind of compensatory package provided to him by the state as some kind of like sanction that's been placed on them by the international community, as in like this is the price you pay for basically criminally persecuting your citizens, right? And that kind of all makes sense. Whereas like what you're talking about now is the descendants, you know, far removed from these individuals, and it seems a lot more harder. Like it's a lot easier to argue equivalence there with like between the case with McZed's great grandfather, which I don't disagree with. That's clearly an example where it seems to make sense, right? It seems to be reasonable. Versus like it'd be more equivalent to say like to compare him and like the 40 acres of a slave who was entitled, an emancipated slave who was entitled to 40 acres of a mule, because you were the direct victim. And a legal precedent has now been established where this is what you're owed by the state because we agree what occurred was a crime. What was committed against you was a crime. Versus the great grandson of that person. It just seems a lot different. But that's not to say that they don't deserve some kind of reparative justice. Right, I'm all for the reparative justice, and I think it is deserved, but just not in the form of a direct check. I think it would just almost have the opposite effect, where, in my opinion, it would worsen racial relations. But I just finally want to say, I'm not Black American, and I'm not some like hater. Like if they just gave Black Americans a check, I wouldn't be hating on Black Americans getting a check. I'd be happy for them. If they just miracled the money out of nowhere, some like stimulus package exclusively for Black people, I wouldn't say no to it. You know what I'm saying? Like I wouldn't be someone that was like ever campaigning against it or arguing against it. I just don't think it's the ideal strategy. That's just my opinion.
You go ahead, Sorry, you had something you was about to say, man. Because I don't really. You there, Sarah? Yeah. Yeah. Well, look, I don't. I'm gonna just say this.
You're like really, really smart though, so I'll probably just defer to you in future. Like whatever ideas you have, I'll just be like, yeah. If he says they should get direct check, then fuck it. This guy's like really smart. Like, he knows what summons. He knows all the different iterations of summons usage.
I got you. So the leading authority on this is a guy named William Darity, Dr. William Darity, or Sandy Darity is what they call him. He's the leading authority on reparations. You can Google his work and really talk about it. If you're really interested, actually, you don't need to take my word for it. You can take actual PhDs and economists and their word on it. That's probably the best way to do it. So anyway, that being said, let me just say this very clearly. Native Americans, or actually anybody, I don't care who it is, if anybody has received an injustice and that particular government is still profiting from that injustice or has a structure that was built from that injustice, then that particular government has a duty to compensate the people that were involved or their descendants. Period. This isn't really complicated. This has been done numerous of times throughout history, and it should continue to happen throughout history. In relationship to Jews deserve every bit of compensation for what happened in the Holocaust. Period. In fact, I believe Jews are even going back to try to get reparations again from Germany, and I don't know the exact parameters around it. Somebody else probably knows more about that than I do. But I know they're seeking additional reparations regarding that, and I think they should get it. You can't really quantify. I mean, I know there has to be an end at some point, but it's hard to quantify that type of crime on people, just like it's hard to quantify systemic slavery, and then on top of that, Jim Crow, redlining, and every other crime that happened against black people. It's hard to quantify all that, even though a lot of economists have quantified it. So that being said, it's very strange when I hear people justify taking advantage of the crimes your ancestors did, but then don't want to pay the consequences of what your ancestors did. That is
Can
the
I
biggest.
reply to you when you're done? Are you done?
Well, you know I wasn't done because you interrupted me.
Okay. Let me know when you're done.
Why do you do this, Rich African?
I just simply said, let me know when you're done, because I didn't want to interrupt you.
You didn't want to interrupt him because you did interrupt him. You're also not allowed to interrupt my fucking nose.
Yeah, well, let me just say this. Yeah, it's so. I think I don't know if any. Yeah, again, Nick Dead may know more about the thing that's happening with Jews right now in terms of trying to get more reparations. But I'm all for it because at the end of the day, like I said, I'm probably more extreme than I know. I'm more extreme than Sam on this. I think all Jews deserve it because all of them were affected. Period. And I feel the same way about any group of people that was affected by a particular government. And if you can trace that back, then you should be able to get it by a working government that has benefited from the crime that they committed against that. I just don't understand the push.
Well, I'll explain a little bit with my other grandfather from my father's side. As I said, he was from Czechoslovakia, not from Germany. The records of his family upbringing are sparse. He lived in a more suburban or rural, kind of muddy area of Hasidim. I don't know. I only have black and white photos. But he actually went to the camps. Right? They sent him to a work camp. After the war, he did get like a work program that got him into America. He learned how to be a mechanic. But his records were not as good as my other grandfather, because the other grandfather came from Germany, so they understood and recognized him, whereas the grandfather from Czechoslovakia didn't exactly have the records. He couldn't prove what happened to him, and he couldn't prove that it happened to him and not just somebody else. So the natural limitation of reparations is, like you're suggesting, what you can prove. Obviously, both of my grandfathers deserved compensation for what happened to them, but because of the law and the justice and the limitations of not allowing fraudsters to just show up and declare that Germany owes them a check, there's a limit. So one grandfather got it, the other not so much.
I kind of still hard to put a price on. It's like trying to put a price tag on like a Monet painting or a Michelangelo sculpture or something. It's just fucking. It's like a hopelessly complex.
Yeah, it's a very difficult task. There's been a lot of people that's done it. I'm actually, interested enough. There's a lot of Jewish scholarship on this, on all angles. Actually, they've been some of the most ardent people, scholarly at least, to kind of like really talk about this. So it's actually pretty interesting. If you actually dive into the professionals, the scholars that talk about this, there's actually a lot of interesting dialogue. Rich African, what was your question, dude?
I didn't have a question. I wanted to reply to whatever you were saying. The problem with your argument is that I think a lot of the people who make these reparation arguments, as it pertains to Black Americans or African Americans, which is bizarre, by the way, because some people who claim to be Black American claim they did not come from Africa. Therefore, making the whole reparation argument even a bit bizarre. But that's besides the point. The point here is that the way capitalism works is that the people who have resources use the people at the bottom who do not have resources. In order for you to get reparations, you would have to dismantle a capitalist system that usually pits the people at the bottom with nothing as their labor, which is very different from the Jewish argument. because the Jewish argument as well is just an event, right? Something happened which caused Jewish people to suffer, therefore deserving them of reparations. What happened to African Americans was not an event; it was a culture.
Okay, so a couple of things. For your first point that you made about them not, the ones that claim not being from Africa, I don't even understand why that's even relevant, because that's irrelevant to the fact of whether that is enslaved.
Fine, move beyond
Hold
that.
on, yo, relax. I don't know why
You relax.
Yo, dude, what's wrong with you, man? This is crazy. Anyway, yeah, it's a super irrelevant point. Like, it's nothing to do with whether or not they're enslaved or not. So anyway, second point in terms of getting rid of capitalism, I don't even understand the connection to that, because capitalism has paid out reparations through various different means, through various different groups of people, including Native Americans who were at the bottom and displaced. So this point about capitalism and having a caste system, and so therefore it's like you got to get rid of capitalism. I don't even like, what is this? Is there some sort of, can you provide some sort of citation of somebody that makes this argument? I've never heard it before. Like, what's going on?
Well, my argument was that in a capitalist system, there's usually a labor force of people who either have nothing or are enslaved. And therefore, to get reparations, you would have to dismantle a capitalist system. That's the argument.
Okay, I guess it's just literally debunks itself, because under the capitalism.
In other words, there would have to be an incentive as to why the American government thought it was a good idea, that quote unquote African Americans get reparations. There would have to be an incentive for that. If there is no incentive for it, it's just throwing money at a problem. And throwing money at a problem does not fix the problem.
Okay. Well, just to be clear, I don't even understand any of that. So I'll just say this.
Fine. Okay.
Yeah, I'll just say this just to land it. If you really want to study the subject, there are a lot of economic scholars on this particular issue that explain not only the benefits largely, but the different cases of have reparations have been given, and the benefits that it has caused different groups of people. There's a lot of literature on this. There's a lot of study on this. I don't even understand the point here.
You've read all those literature and studies, but you can't seem to address my point. Fine. Okay. Good luck with that literature.
Yeah, they're doing great work, bro.
What do you think is the, like, if you could change one thing about white culture, and don't say reparations because that's not culture, that's like law. What would you change about white culture?
Imperialism. I think there's the greatest. I think the biggest issue within white culture is this incessant, and I actually think it comes from an inferiority complex. I think there's this incessant idea of trying to position yourselves above others. I think I understand it. I think it just comes from the fact that, this doesn't apply to Jews, actually, ironically enough, but just white culture in general. There's this ideology that in order to steal other people's resources or to take from other people, they have to impugn them, or they have to, make them inferior so they can justify exploiting those people. So if I can get rid of one thing, it'd be that.
I think that white people generally, to some degree, are more curious than the non-whites, more experimental, and a little disrespectful to prior systems of order. I think that's to their strength and to their weakness. I think that it hurts people, and I think that they are privy to discoveries that the safer humans are not.
So that sounds like it's not a criticism. It sounds like it's just like
It's both. It's a blurse, like you would say.
Curse. But yeah. What would I change about white culture? I would change about white culture. I mean, my answer's gonna be so fucking lame, but I'm not gonna say it.
I think all cultures need to just change to care about like things that actually matter. Like we're just totally like insensitive to like magnitudes of problems and like things that are like. There are some things that could cause human extinction, and there are some things that will have no chance of causing just extinction. And we should prioritize things based on their importance. And like we could debate this, the death penalty, but that affects 10 people a year in America. Or we could discuss things like malaria, and how much aid we give to malaria, which affects tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people. Since which people are just totally scope insensitive. But that's not like a criticism of white culture. That's kind of a criticism of all culture. What do I not like about white culture? I don't like. Historically, they've been very warlike, and that's like the fact that they invented the fact that the slave trade happened and Nazism happened and the colonization of Americas happened. That's crazy, and that's really brutal. And the fact that their culture allowed them to do it. Also, the fact that the world wars happened is so embarrassing. Europe in the start of the 20th century was incredibly rich, and instead of using that wealth to just let's explore the space, let's do shit like that. Decided to slaughter each other and have one of the biggest blood offerings to Moloch that's ever been given. That's kind of
okay. But Sam, how did World War I start? How did Europe get into this A, very wealthy position, and B, this completely explosive position? By, again, these very elaborate bureaucratic deals. They had an elaborate deal from Bismarck. That forced the hand, plus the disenfranchisement of the minorities, right? Europe was complicated. That's part of the problem with all of whiteness. We said this earlier, and we should reiterate. Whiteness doesn't exist in fucking Europe. Whiteness is an American thing. There's no black people in Africa. There are black Americans, and then there's white Americans. Because that's a flattening. You can't say all of Africa is discerned by a color. Same thing with Europe. There's diversity there. But in America, where they both ended up being branded as color A or color B, yeah, in America, race exists. Europe, study the history more.
Hey, Dave, you alright, man?
What happened?
You just been off mute.
I don't know, some of those.
I mean, what happened? It was making noise?
Yeah.
Do you agree that imperialism has it's not really a thing anymore? If anything, China is doing an imperial project in Africa these days, not Europe?
Wait. That's not only China.
Well, how I view imperialism is more about control. As much as China is in there, and I don't believe it's all altruistic or anything like that. Let me be clear. I don't know if I would use the term imperialism in any meaningful way. I do think imperialism, when you're forced to use their money, when you're forced to use their language, when you're forced to use or to capitulate to how they want you to govern, that's imperialism. I don't see China doing that.
Do you agree that the West has done much less imperialism since, 1970 or something?
No.
Where do you see the major centers of white imperialism going on?
Well, you see this guy in my PTR? This is a prime example. What's happening in the Congo? The Congo is everything that's happening in the Congo that's negative is 100% due to the West. 100. Listen, let me be clear. 100%.
How would
100%. 100.
Ignoring all the history, how would you fix the Congo quick?
Easy. So I would kick the West completely out. I would balkanize the Congo. The DRC is as big as Western Europe, so it's way too big. There's not enough infrastructure to govern the entire country. In fact, the part of the movements there is to separate the Kantaga region away from the DRC. And
How many states do you envision?
probably would say north, east, south, probably four. And now, to make it more workable for the international community, I probably would make them more so autonomous regions. They can still be up under the DRC, but they need to be autonomous in respect to their governing themselves in a way that's separate from Kinshasa. Kinshasa, which is the capital of the DRC, is all the way in the west. And they have no control at all in the Kantaga region or the eastern region, which is with North Kivu and South Kivu, where a lot of the stuff is happening. So they gotta let that go, and if they don't, it's just this continued thing is going to continue happening, and this is only happening because the West are trying to control the DRC because they want to continue exploiting the resources.
That's just a little. Why is that European imperialism right now? What's going on with the Europeans in the Congo?
Yeah. So first of all, it's interesting enough. The main language in the Congo is French, actually. The French, it's a French billionaire named Bellour, the Bellour family. They actually own the majority of the media in the Congo. Like the French owns the majority of the media in the Congo. Even when you think that they are like independent, they are still supported and owned by some French guy. That's number one. Number two is the mines. Glencore, Bellour, and a lot of other people that are not Congolese owns the mines. So, for example, Rwanda 100% owns all their mines and minerals. This is not the same in the Congo. It is usually 90%, 85%, 70%, or sometimes even 100% owned by other people, not the Congo.
How does that ownership break down? Is that owned by countries, individuals? Like, how does that work?
That's a good question. No, it's not any individual countries. No, it's usually done by companies. The only state
like an organization protected by certain sovereign's laws.
Yeah, like Glencore is a prime example. Yeah.
So where would you have to sue to argue with Glencore?
So I think what the Congo would need to do is just kick them out.
No, I'm just saying where's Glencore from? Is it from Taiwan?
No. Oh, Glencore is a European base. I think it's actually based in London. Actually, Glencore.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Okay, so you're saying you'd have to show up in British court to argue with this Glencore company controlling large properties of mines in Congo.
I wouldn't. That's what I'm saying. I would do what other countries would, just kick them out.
Okay, I understand that. I'm just saying, like right now, to respond to any complaints, like, hey, you're killing people or you're destroying the land, you'd have to literally fly to England.
Well,
Exam wants to know where the complaint box is located.
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm not an international lawyer, so I don't know the exact parameters in terms of that. But I can tell you what's happening on the ground in terms of a lot of times these guys, they don't tell you this, but these companies like Glencore, Bellour, etc., they hire European mercenaries. And oftentimes these European mercenaries operate with impunity in the Congo, kill civilians, rape the women, stuff like that. And this is really going to fuck you up too. The UN oftentimes even covers it up. So,
yeah, and they operate off intelligence from like American bases, again, all the different military bases in Africa. What's that, like AFCOM or whatever? Like, a lot of these like multinational stuff, obviously they and lobbyist groups, they basically they lobby the American government to put political pressure on politicians and whatever leaders in government in these regions, and like basically engineer instability, and then like they reap the benefits and stuff.
To what
end?
Put
in public governments. Yeah, because obviously, well, I think it's like pretty simple. It's like, what's that phrase from that movie? Like, it's like safe is only as strong as the guy who holds the key or something like that. It's like you look at like the fucking American war machine, or you look at all these intelligence services. And it's like you don't have to buy the entire intelligence service. You just have to lobby like a particular congressman just have in your pocket, like a particular congressman or senator or a group of them or whatever. And that's how you can like really affect change. And you see it all the time. Like I think it's like a famous case. I think his name was Chedi Yagan, I want to say. Well, that name seems really familiar to me, but I think it was like bauxite or sugar or some shit that basically he wanted to like nationalize the production of something, and then like MI6 and the CIA colluded to like just have him deposed, and they organized a coup, and then like I can't remember what company was that benefited. Similarly, it was like Shell and all those that benefited from the removal of Mossadegh in Iran. It's like that's how it works. Generally, it's like these national corporations, or just like American corporations, British corporations, whatever. They basically just like petition their governments to cause some kind of instability in the region, and then they just like institute or put in place, I should say, some like puppet regime that are just really basically favorable to these corporations, and they sign these like ridiculous like lease, lease holds for the land and shares. Like they're paying like fucking 1 cent a year or something, for 1,000 years and stuff like. And there's like zero corporate tax for 1,000 years. This kind of stuff, and then like these fucking African politicians and whatever South American politicians, they have like these fucking Cayman Island bank accounts with fucking millions and millions of dollars, and then eventually they like retire in some fucking villa or something in Barbados. But I think that's generally how it works.
When I think about what white people were doing wrong 100 years ago, 150 years ago, it's like that they were fucking brutal and murderous, and fucking like the fact that they just so much war and bloodshed was done by Europeans. That's what I think of. But then when I think of what's wrong with white people now, it's that they fucking have so much. They're like basically have so much self-hatred and depression, and so much.
They're literally still doing that.
Well, I'm saying that the primary problem now is with the West is not that they are murdering at industrial scale. It's more that they like just don't even have a sense that like they could do anything good, and that like grand projects are like worthy of doing. Like if you look at the sort of like modernists, like I think that art can sometimes be a window into our soul. If you look at like the modernist architecture and how ambitious it is, and they're building like grand things, so they think the future's gonna be great. They think like, oh, we're gonna do awesome shit. We're gonna do like really big ambitious stuff. That seems to be like that's like I feel like a lot of that's like lost. So much of the West these days is like listless, depressed, ennui. We shouldn't do great things. We shouldn't do big things because they have so much hatred about what happened.
Remember Hyperborea.
So it's just like it's kind of interesting that like my views of like what's wrong with white people are just very different based on the century that I'm looking at.
Okay, so the terrible white people in Congo that should be kicked out, obviously. Al, you said like 4 or 5 states. How many languages and different ethnicities does Congo maintain?
Who's saying the horrible white people that should be kicked out?
Al was discussing the horrors of Congo, and I asked him very quickly, how do we make Congo better? One thing was very quickly, he wanted multiple states, and he wanted all of the Westerners out. And one of his complaints were these international companies like, I forget the name, but this British...
Glencore. He said Glencore.
Glencore, excuse me. Thank you.
He said Glencore? Sorry, I'll give me a second.
That's correct. He gave another one as well.
Hey, Sam,
well, my question was, in terms of the 4 or 5 states you envision in a united federal Congo with no Western influence, how many different ethnicities and languages are being preserved in that 4 or 5 state structure? Do they have 4 or 5 roughly language and?
But it doesn't even it's not even this is one of the big problems. Who gives a shit about white and black people? Like people that don't mind the indigenous people of the land suffering just so they can profit. These like profiteers and captains of industry types. Those are the people that are bad. It doesn't matter if they're white or black. There's a lot of black people that should be ousted from those countries, that are even worse than some of the white people. And I don't mean even worse as in they're more influential or like they bear bigger responsibility. I just mean like they're more irredeemable. Like there's no sanction you can put on them that would change their behavior, right? So like this like white and black stuff is obviously like a really short-sighted. It's like not a white and black issue. It's it's a kind of capitalist issue, unfortunately, at this point. Like these people are just ultimately Africans. It's something that's just even some of just like the I don't know what the term is. There's a term for it. It's like kind of like ecological exploitation kind of thing, where basically or environmental or something, where it's just like they dump fucking toxic waste in like the rivers and stuff like that. It's that kind of like at best negligence, at worst extreme prejudice they have for the indigenous population. Like it's like that's the kind of big issue I think personally. It doesn't matter if it's like a white corporation. It doesn't matter if the CEO was a black guy. It doesn't matter what color the people are.
We agree. The problem is that there is currently a simplified power structure of a single Congo with several corrupt politicians that will sell out whoever's within the country and whatever properties there are to these multinational companies. That then the multinational companies first.
But if all the white people left tomorrow, quote unquote,
right?
If all the white people would, firstly, there's no natural resource, mineral, whatever, in the Congo that's exclusively from the Congo. They may have the largest reserves, but it's not exclusive, so it just costs a lot more. So there's no extreme demand Congo could place that would where basically they completely corner the market, at least not for the next couple of centuries. So realistically, what you're talking they're always going to need to trade with these Westerners anyway, and I don't think right now they don't have the resources to extract. Let me just finish this last thought, and I promise you go. They don't have the resources necessarily to extract all of these minerals, right, themselves, right? So I don't know, they don't have the diggers and whatever have you, all the machinery and stuff, right? So again, they could just be charged exorbitant rates by these companies that they oust from these countries. So either way, these quote unquote white people can just recoup all their losses in terms of for how much they're paying for the resource itself. And then also, do you know how fucking large the territory is? And like you rightly pointed out, Mick said, do you know how many different ethnic groups there are within that territory? This idea that when white people leave, it's going to be all kumbaya because black people are just inherently harmonious people is absolutely ridiculous as well, right? So this idea that you're just going to completely break off ties with the West, have some kind of autarkic, ideal utopic state where everybody's just happy with each other, and we have all of these resources, and we don't need to sell it to the West. We can just build our own batteries for our own electric cars. Is very quixotic, it's very idealistic.
Yo, dude, you're all over the place. You're not making none of the arguments you're saying.
Did that make sense to you, Mick?
Hold on, we just heard you.
Oh, sorry, no, you said I didn't make sense. I was just saying for other people as well.
Makes sense. I got you. I'll help you out here.
Thank you.
First of all, nobody's making the argument that they can't do business. The point of it is to do it on terms that are favorable to the actual indigenous people. This is the point. This is the reason why I gave you an example. Like Glencore, I'll give you an example. Glencore has a couple of mines in the Congo where they own 90% of the goddamn mine. It's only 10% of anything goes to the actual government, and let alone the people of the region. You know what I'm saying? I'm saying this is a problem. Where you have a place like Rwanda, you might want to go on mute, dude. You keep, I don't know, just your stuff. But anyway, so where someone like Rwanda, they own all of it, right? And what they do is they partner with other people, and they do good business with the West, which is fine. It's no problem to do good business with the West. I'm not arguing not to do business with the West. That's nobody's argument. The question is, how do you create a structure or a framework that benefits the actual indigenous people? This is the question. And I'm saying the current regime and the current structure is not doing that. And there is a way to do it. And there's several examples on how to do it. That's why I actually got this guy in my PTR, Paul Kagame. I have him as my PTR because a lot of it's really to educate black people on it, but people in large about what's going on in the Great Lakes region. But the point I'm saying is, in fact, I'll even go as far as to say this. As much corruption as Glencore's been convicted of, or Valor, or even American corporations have been convicted of corruption in the Congo. Dan Gertler actually is an Israeli that got convicted of corruption in the Congo. There's so many different people that got convicted of corruption in the Congo. Even amongst all of that, I don't care about that. I care more about, I still would do business with those companies as long as it's done on favorable terms to the indigenous people, right? And it's not being had right now. The problem is these people, and again, the government is essentially being controlled because the West wants the resources at a cheap rate. You got to understand, they supply 80% of the world's coltan, which is needed for the fucking phone that you're on right now. And not just that, it's so many other different resources, everything from gold to, tin, tungsten, and just all. Listen, they have literally $24 trillion worth of natural resources alone. That's untapped. So it's an extremely valuable commodity, and these people want to continue to take advantage of it at the most cheapest rates. But if they were able to actually control what was happening and to actually nationalize it and to make sure that the people was able to take advantage of it more than the corporations and the other people in their interest, then what would happen is you would have a much better Congo. All these other people, these different, there's over 120 rebel groups in Eastern Congo alone. This doesn't exist in Rwanda. None of these rebel groups exist in Rwanda. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, Rwanda's not the most fucking resource-rich country in the world, like fucking all region in the world.
Wait, hold on. You said Rwanda. Rwanda has a lot of natural resources, but it's not one of the most.
It's not. No, I'm saying the Democratic Congo or Democratic Republic of Congo.
Well, hold on. Let me just lay the point. The point that I'm making with giving the Rwanda example is we literally have a direct example of they're right next door to each other. So you have Rwanda, which is a well-run nation. Right? It's extremely well run, right? All of these terror groups, it doesn't exist in Rwanda. They all exist in the Congo. So if the Congo can literally just replicate what happened in Rwanda, we wouldn't be going through this mess.
No, I think so. Yeah, sorry. So what McZed asked was about, if I'm correct if I'm wrong, maybe I just misunderstood it. It was about ousting the quote-unquote white people.
Oh yeah, because
obviously that isn't the issue.
Yeah, because they could.
Yeah, that was my point. If you listen
I'm saying. So, they control. So listen to what I'm saying. So here's what you're missing. So they control basically the resources in the Congo.
Yeah.
And that's the problem.
When you say they, my point is like it's people that don't mind abusing the human rights of and just the environment, the land from which they're extracting the resources and the inhabitants of that, the indigenous inhabitants of said environment. Okay, those kinds of people, black or white and trans.
No.
There are a lot of black.
Wait, hold on.
Just let me finish.
You sanitize.
Just let me finish. Yeah, let me finish. Those people, it doesn't matter if they are black or white, the Congo will continue to be in disarray so long as people have that goal in mind, okay? So that's bad. The problem is there's absolutely no way that anyone is going, any company that looks at it like literally just, checks and balances, sees it as just a figure, just an overhead, just a cost. There's absolutely no way if they can still if they can still generate net profit that there's no way that they're ever going to relinquish control. It just doesn't work like that, okay? The way, presumably, that we will kind of achieve this kind of global liberation is if there is a move towards recognition and acknowledgement of the human rights of all human beings and also the sovereignty of all of these regions. But I promise you, there's going to be no way in the world when you've got a war machine like America and you have companies that seek to profit, that have direct influence over this war machine, that it will ever stop. Why would it ever stop? And it doesn't matter if it's a black person or a white person. In a thousand years, it could be black people that are responsible for all the same abuses and for all of these resources. It wouldn't really matter.
This is just like a reimagining. I don't even understand what that experiment. So let me just say this.
I'm saying the focus is a naive one.
This is just you saying, hey, listen, everybody commits crimes. It's just goofy. So I like talking about facts on the ground and what's actually happening instead of some weird. So let's say. So what I'm talking about. Yeah. So anyway, here's what I'm saying. Just to be very.
Like, are you like?
Hold on, brother.
Are you capable of having a conversation that like this dynamic where like obviously, like presumably you have some stuff to share, you have information to people, and some people may have different opinions to you. Does it have to be like super contentious where everything is like some debate? I imagine like even if I imagine you haven't had a lot of success with that kind of dynamic anyway, so maybe it's like time to try something new. You can just give your opinion and you don't have to be like super immature and obnoxious.
Okay, cool. Now just go on mute. So that being said, right?
You're fucking 7-year-old girl.
Yo, go on mute, dude.
Hello. You gonna go on mute? Hello. Like that's really good.
Hey, Sam, man, put this dude on mute. Man. I don't know what the fuck this dude was doing, man. So anyway,
stop being a fucking bitch. That's what I'm doing. like, be normal. And it's like, if I have a different opinion than you, don't be so sassy.
All right, fine. All right. Since you wanna go there, hold on. Since you wanna go there, I wasn't gonna. Hey Sam, you got one more time, or I'm gonna go in on this dude. Because I'm gonna
Go in, pussy.
I'm
Go in, pussy.
gonna go in on
Pussy,
this.
don't be scared. Why you asking your white daddy?
I'm gonna go in on
your white daddy. Go in, pussy. Don't worry about him. He can't save you.
Are you Somali? Hey, hold on. Are you Somali?
No.
What are you?
None of your business.
Yeah, you are. I can tell. Yeah. I can listen to the inflections in your voice and tell you're a fucking Muslim, aren't you?
No.
That's right.
No.
Yeah, you're a Muslim. Hold on. He's an atheist. That's why your prophet is a child molester. Your prophet. Your prophet is a fucking child rapist.
He's an atheist. He be arguing.
No, I'm not.
He's a Muslim.
Right.
Get his ass.
He got my number.
He is a Muslim. I can tell.
No.
I know he's a Muslim.
No,
I can tell. By his voice, I can tell he's a Muslim.
His prophet is literally his PTR, right? So
he's an atheist.
blaspheme.
Astaghfirullah al-Azim. He insulted my prophet. Wallahi.
He mocking
by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You will 100%. You'll die for what you said today.
brought it out.
You'll die for what you said. This is my fatwa. You'll die for what you said today.
Alhamdulillah. He making fun of it. He's making fun of Islam
You
now.
will be killed by the Muslims.
Hey,
Wallahi,
he said
we'll
one
finish you.
word and brought it. That's a magical power.
When I catch you, you're finished. You're finished. Wallahi, you're finished.
Yeah, these fucking Muslims, dude. We gotta get this. That's why Israel getting rid of y'all ass. That's why Israel getting rid of y'all.
I have a question. What is preventing the Democratic Republic of the Congo from enforcing laws that will prohibit the international companies from
Mercenaries,
doing what they're doing?
Mercenaries, intelligence services, Americans funding fucking puppet regimes.
So it's being funded by the Americans, the
No.
Republic of the Congo.
China, Britain.
So it's corrupt. And so Rwanda is not corrupt, but Congo is. Is that it?
That's correct.
So,
I mean, he's probably wrong about that, but
I'm not wrong about it.
I would take that with a pinch of salt.
It's correct.
so it's corrupt. So it's the fault of the West. The West, okay. And there are Christians being murdered by these rebel gangs in Congo also.
That's
right?
true. Yeah.
A lot of them Christian. I mean, it's been
The
happening
gangs?
for. It's been
There's a Islamic jihadist group running around in the Congo called ADF, and they are literally an ISIS subgroup, and they go around murdering Christians.
Yeah.
But just to be clear, America and Britain colluded to kill Patrice Lumumba. His name was Patrice Lumumba. I think in the 60s, he was a socialist reformer in Congo. Yeah, and they colluded to kill him.
And now
I think they attested. Yeah, they attested. They attested to the killing. I think like some intelligence officer lady on her deathbed from MI6 admitted to as much. So like clearly these like corporations have had their eyes on Congo. For Congo for basically the past half a century or more. It's not just now, like what you're seeing now, the current reality, or like the civil war that broke out in the 90s and all of that stuff. That's just like basically the fallout from these the kind of instability that was caused by suppressing or quelling any kind of socialist reformation in like the 60s.
Yeah, well, that happened in the
Burkina Faso.
60s. And other countries in Africa have overcome those kind of things that happened back
But they
then.
haven't, man.
Well, South Africa has.
Botswana has.
What the fuck are you talking about?
She
South
just
Africa
said
is like the most dangerous place on earth.
Well, I mean, their economy, they've
What
taken
African
control.
country do you want to move to, Michaela?
I want to move to Rwanda.
That's what I thought.
I do.
Rwanda.
It's a whole.
Yeah.
Kenya?
Yeah, Rwanda, Botswana, Senegal, Ghana, there's a whole bunch. What are you talking about?
Now, have you ever seen the movie Empire of Dust?
Zanzibar.
You
Check that movie out now.
What's it called?
Empire of Dust. Alright, so it's this Chinese guy. He's working for some Chinese company, and he's just trying to do some like get shit done in the Congo. I don't know exactly what company. And I don't know. It paints a picture of. It doesn't paint a picture of, if all the foreign people left, all this dope shit would be done by itself. It paints a picture of, you just see him lament, like the Chinese guy is going like a little crazy of like, why the fuck are these roads in such fucking disarray? Why did you let these fucking roads go to disarray? Why the fuck is all this machinery going to fucking like getting fucking rusted? What are you doing? Like, and he's got a little. I mean, he's calmer than that. But that's like he's like very frustrated, and it doesn't paint a picture of like, yes, if only this Chinese man left, there would be, oh my god, they would have been just pick up the slack immediately. Like,
no, I got you.
There's like a lot of like.
I'll explain that to you. Yeah.
There's a lot of what dysfunction that's in the Congo that's like would prevent shit from getting done independent from these foreign like people being there.
Yeah, I'll explain that to you. So let me tell you the reason why I don't blame China as much as I blame the West. So first of all, is China exploiting the Congo? Yes, but I'll tell you the reason why they have the responsibility of them is nowhere near the West. I'll tell you. So in North Kivu and South Kivu alone, actually in South Kivu, they have like 450 illegal companies operating in South Kivu alone. So I want to be very clear. I understand what China is doing in the DRC. But here's the difference. China is not putting a gun to the government's head and saying, do what we do or we're going to kill you. This is what the West is doing. The West are funding the mercenaries, for example, that are in China are European mercenaries. They got thousands of European mercenaries there. In fact, they have mercenary groups that they're not even reporting in the DRC. The UN is not even reporting on these because they're keeping it a secret, right? So if the DRC government said, China, you guys got to get out, you guys got to do this, China would just leave and they'll obey, whatever the case may be. China right now is just taking advantage of the corruption. But the actual corruption is caused by the French and U.S. oligarchs that is running amok in the fucking DRC. That's what's causing the destabilization in the DRC. It isn't China. Even though China is taking advantage, they're not the cause of it. And let me just explain this last point to address your point about the native people. So let me kind of explain something to you. So part of the problem that's happening in DRC, the ethnic tensions, happens because of the colonial borders, okay? So the colonial borders started separating people and causing tension in ways that it didn't before. Let me give you an example. There's a group called the Binyamalinge. They are what you call Tutsis, right, in the Congo. The Congo literally took away their citizenship, because of this tribalistic mindset that happened with the borders being split, that Europe did, not Africans. And so this is the reason I was telling Mixed earlier that if you want to solve this issue, balkanizing the DRC is one of the solutions, because you're telling groups of people to integrate with groups of people that have no relation to them whatsoever. So it's like this. Imagine telling Italians that they got to do the same fucking government as the Irish. These are two totally different groups of people. They don't even want to be managed by these people. Like, what are we doing here? You know what I'm saying? So, but Europeans, the West, by and large, is forcing that to happen in Africa. You're forcing these groups of people that don't want to be governed by these groups of people to be governed by these groups of people. That's the problem.
Yeah, I wasn't asking you about whether or not China should be blamed or anything like that. I was saying there seems to be this dysfunction in the Congo. I mean, this is a movie, so I mean, take it with a grain of salt. But like, in terms of like dysfunction in the Congo that relating to, I don't know, getting shit done. Everything that was happening was like required the Chinese guy to do like all this fucking unnecessary steps. Everything was like, everyone was dragging their heels. Everyone was fucking like, I don't know, the whole, like, he was just like, it was just a fucking horror show of like incompetence and like ridiculousness. The whole movie was just showing like this. It's just this one Chinese guy being frustrated by how fucking challenging it is to get some fucking simple tasks done. And I'm kind of pointing you to this idea that's maybe uncomfortable, that it's not just a matter of, maybe the reason why the foreigners are doing that is because they are able to get this job done. And maybe if you have them leave, I mean, I'm happy to test this empirically, that maybe the native people won't just make companies just as good at extracting resources as the fucking foreigners are doing it. And like, maybe these things
now and impossible now because presumably like the relationship, like obviously it's going to sour the relationship if you're pretty much ousting and expelling all of these like foreign people. Sorry, all of these foreign companies from the region who like presumably had investments there and now have lost that or lost the opportunity to profit. And then ultimately you're going to require at the very least from them, you know, be it training, be it the actual machinery itself, be it parts to build your own machines, you know, you're going to need to, presumably you're going to need to recruit from them. So some kind of like freedom of movement, some kind of trade deal you're going to need to establish in terms of to be, you know, to allow like, to incentivize the, like importing a lot of their fucking, like technology, be it through recruiting, you know, scientists and what have you, like the R&D stuff you're going to need to do, presumably you're going to need to borrow from the West and blah, blah, blah. It's like, it's just going to make it really, really difficult. So the idea that like the solution is to expel all these like quote unquote white people or foreigners is obviously like not the best solution. If you look at China, you look at any of these nations who had this like, this, you know, insane kind of like economic and technological advancement over a short period of time. Like that's not how they did it. They didn't do it by being fucking autarkic.
And if I think the solution to the problem
is just so poor logic. But anyway, go ahead.
Of the Westerners, your proposal was to have a universal law of human rights that would empower people to prevent these kinds of abuses, something like that.
You asking me or what's this?
No, that was to Timothy, because Al was proposing that we kick out the Westerners and Vulcanize, create multiple states within a Congo federation. Timothy was saying that based upon Congo's actual resources and the Western influence that's currently there, that wouldn't work, and you have the American war machine. He said that your better proposal was to have like this universal human rights, and somehow that would assist the people in Congo.
I'm saying, look, the idea that obviously, like, America isn't some fucking monolith. Like, there's lots of different, like, cogs in this machine. And ultimately, if you get enough of them kind of, you know, pointing in the right direction, then you can target that war machine towards any, like any specific interest or specific goal. And the way that's usually done is you petition or you lobby, you know, specific members of the government, and those people eventually, when you know, achieve a majority or plurality or whatever is required, then like they have sufficient influence to get this shit going in your, you know, in the direction that's favorable to you. The point is like that's never going to stop. So long as there's people that can profit, they will have the money to be able to do that. Right? And obviously America will keep developing. That's just what they're going to do. They're going to keep improving technologically their military and so on and so forth, right? And they're going to continue to have the most advanced military in the world, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so clearly that's just not going to stop. You know, it'd just be very quixotic to believe that, it's like, you know, when finally the Congolese get their act together, eventually America's going to have to take note. I mean, that or, you know, you take this Iranian approach and try to enrich uranium, and you see how that's working out for them. Maybe it could be like North Korea, who knows, right? I think the best kind of strategy is if, like, I don't know, you contribute to this, like, global, you know, fucking awareness of human rights, and we, like, as a, you know, a global society move towards a world in which, like, people acknowledge that, yes, this isn't what we should be doing. We shouldn't be, like, just fucking mercilessly exploiting people, and we shouldn't be just destroying environments so that, you know, certain companies and certain individuals can profit, and we shouldn't just be, you know, creating greater and greater wealth disparity and inequality in the world. Like, when maybe, like, that's the zeitgeist, I think, yes, we wouldn't get situations like Congo anymore. But short of that, I mean, there's just a reason why that country's been in the situation it's been in for, you know, probably closer to a century at this point. It's like, that's just the reason, ultimately. But I get, I don't have any solution. Like, I'm fucking retarded. Who knows? I don't know. I'm just saying that my idea is just not that, like Sam is right, unfortunately. And by the way, this isn't some, like, race realist concession. It's not about black, white, whatever. Clearly, these are people who have been intentionally, like, economically underdeveloped for fucking a century or almost, or more, actually, if you know the whole history. Yeah, so it's like, obviously, yeah, I don't think you're just going to leave tomorrow and then, you're going to come back and it's going to be fucking Wakanda. Like, I don't think that's how that works. And that would be true for fucking anybody, Koreans, whoever. I think, yeah, I mean, maybe if there was kind of also this, like, maybe, for instance, another option would be there's this kind of, like, far more, like, beneficent influence in terms of, like, American politics. And what you tend to find is it's not that, like, the whole world recognizes we shouldn't exploit people, capitalism is wrong, but, like, what you do find is actually that there is a contingent that, you know, makes a concerted effort to represent these kind of mistreated peoples around the world, and or, you know, develops a strategy or produces a strategy that basically is, like, beneficial for both parties, which I don't know, it seems pretty zero-sum from my perspective, but maybe it's not. I don't know, maybe I'm not smart enough to, like, have thought this through. Maybe some genius like Ethan is going to work out a way to, like, he's going to, you know, find a two-state solution for Israel. He's going to find, you know, I don't know. But from my perspective, yeah, that's the only way it works. Because ultimately, America's at the root. Yeah, I've been rambling.
Yeah. The way I see your solution contrasted against Al's is it sounds like Al is approaching the problem from one of state formation. He says this was a malformed state. I've got better state proposals, and partly I want to remove the Western influences that have their model of statehood. Whereas you are arguing in a more, like, universal sense that these are natural phenomena of the resources, the particular members, and the existence of America as a democratic institution. And that's why you're approaching it more from the acknowledgement of democracy. You're saying this is a media question, a propagandist question. The world needs to be aware of this so that they can get out the vote and change the general perspective.
Well, not like that. Yeah. But I think it's just general. Like, not in particular, the world needs to be aware of this particular. No, I think just to be true, this is just symptomatic, or this is endemic within the continent or on the continent. There is a million Congo-like stories on the continent, right? Where these corporations are for just, you know, like what most people would consider, you know, insignificant resources. There's these kinds of arrangements, historic arrangements, or, you know, what's that term for? It's not contrived. What is it? You know, when you, like, engineer scarcity, there's, like, a term for it. Zulu doesn't. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah,
with dimes and stuff like that.
Scarcity, artificial.
There we go. Perfect. Thank you very much. Yeah. So it's like, obviously there's cases like this all over the continent, right? So the idea is not just, if people start recognizing what's going on in Congo, then, you know, opinions will change. I'm just saying, just generally, like, if there is absolutely no interest or incentive to stop exploiting these people, why would anybody stop exploiting these people?
See, this is it's very simple. There is a solution to this. It's been proposed by the guy in my PTR. This is why I keep using him as an example, because he created an actual solution. Again, we're talking about Rwanda, which is right next to the DRC. In fact, the dictator that the Congo had, Mobutu Sese Seko, this guy in my PTR got rid of this dictator that the West propped up. In fact, the guy you mentioned, Patrice Lumumba, was captured and killed by this guy's military, Mobutu Sese Seko. And this dude in my PCR kicked that dude out in the 90s. Okay? So there's solutions to these problems, because there are people, you guys, for example, you guys were talking about all these different groups of people. Let me tell you what this guy did, right, in Rwanda. They had a situation to where there was extreme racism. In fact, what was going on in Rwanda might have been the most extreme racism on the continent. I would argue there is no more extreme racism that was happening on the continent of Africa than what happened in Rwanda. And so he was able to figure. What I'm saying is, these issues that we're talking about, they actually have been solved by Africans. And I'm saying the same thing can happen in the Congo. There's no reason why it can't happen. In terms of kicking people out, in terms of the West, that's what he did. He nationalized the fucking minerals, the mines, and started working with the West on equal terms. He worked with them on equal terms. And that is the reason why Rwanda became the safest country in Africa. Kigali is like the top tourist destination in one of the top tourist destinations in Africa. The it's like the third best city in Africa, or something like that. They have the most women in government out of any country in the entire world. They call it the miracle of Rwanda. You can Google it if you want to learn more about it. The point is, they've been able to develop to a very high degree, and Congo could do the same thing. It's a country right next to fucking Rwanda.
Yeah, look into it. I always assume that Sam is like chat GPT and stuff. So he's either checked out or he's chat GPT.
So actually, I looked up different Congo regions and the different.
No, but he's saying he's talking about solutions. He's directly responding to what you're saying and technically what I'm saying. He's just saying like, hey, look, Rwanda is the template, right? Like it is the example that you can use, that you can appeal to justify the belief that actually, if you oust Westerners, then you can have this like kind of exponential economic growth. So, what say you, Sam? I'm conceding. I'm just going to look into it, and at this point, I don't have a response for him. What's your thoughts? What are your thoughts, Ray?
I mean, I just have this general view that like, here's one view of why the Congo is poor. It's because like they're being exploited by foreigners. Now, foreign exploitation is a thing that can happen, but like, how much is it like the Congolese culture and like what institutions they're like building for themselves and stuff like that. Like, in the movie Empire of Dust, you have this Asian guy and he's like, all my workers, they give them a paycheck, they don't save it, they drink it away. Like he's like,
No, but this cultural shit like that. You're not engaging with what he's saying though. He's saying he sees your whatever movie example and he raises you Rwanda and he's saying, look, if you do oust the West, and presumably you put this kind of like infrastructure in place, I'm not sure exactly what it is, but like I said, I'll look into it. He's saying that actually you can have this kind of success completely independently of any Western involvement.
Wait, hold on. Independently of Western hegemony, which is different for you. I don't know. It seems to be you have this binary idea that somebody is saying the West shouldn't be involved in any capacity.
What capacity?
Hold on, relax. And I want to make sure I'm clear.
How do I not sound like I'm like
because you keep saying, you said specifically without Western involvement that those wasn't my
Yeah, so then I misunderstood you, and I'm seeking to clarify. I'm saying, can you just explain in what?
I've said it like 5 times. I don't know how I get it. I'll say it again. So they partnered with the West. Partnered, not be exploited by the West.
Can you just give me the can you expound on that?
Yeah. Again, I have to keep repeating myself. Rwanda owns all of their mines, bro. They own all of their mines and their minerals. This isn't true in the Congo.
So is it something like they increase like corporate taxes and they're like, they own the land but they lease it back to the Americans or something, or these corporations, or is it like something like explain? Do you have? I'm not saying you need to have this or to know this. Just to be clear, I'm just asking. Do you have an idea about exactly how the relationship? Because it seems strange if you're like one of these corporations and you have this like insane leasehold, or you just own outright some land, some mine or something, and basically all the resources that come out of it are yours, and you pay some like paltry fucking corporate tax. That seems like a really cushy deal. I don't know why you'd want to renegotiate. But assuming you're forced into some kind of renegotiation, what would the likely terms be of this renegotiation for you to keep an interest and investment in this country? And like, for instance, we can use an example like something that Rwanda would have offered one of these corporations.
Yeah, I'm definitely not understanding what you're saying, because what I'm saying is very clearly, the solution would be, so the example would be what Rwanda did, because Rwanda had to do it. Exactly what you described. Wait, hold on. Bro, just relax, I'm telling you. So what happened was, the French and the Belgium used to exploit Rwanda too. Okay? Everything that Rwanda has built up has been since 1994. So the same thing that was happening in the Congo was happening in Rwanda too. They was exploiting the same shit. But a new government got installed by this man right here in my PTR. He took out all that shit, changed everything, controlled it. Now the country is a marvel. The same thing can happen in the DRC. You just got to take the same thing that they did in Rwanda and do the same exact thing. So what they need to do is take control of all of their mines, take control of all of the minerals, and then work out a similar. Hold on, whoa, relax, huh?
I'm saying, like, what does that look like? Okay.
Okay, hold on. Congo does not own their mines, bro.
Listen,
that's what it looks like. Them on
let me just help you.
I can answer it for you.
Maybe resolve the maybe.
Can I respond to it?
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
All right. So imagine right now under the current contract they're doing 100%.
No, but not hypothetically. I don't. Wait. I don't.
I'm gonna get there, but there's no actual. I mean, if you're asking for an exact number.
Yeah, I'm asking for something. No, not an exact number, but something specific. Because he's saying as a counterexample to this. So initially, just to be clear, I just want to be clear about what we're discussing.
I can explain.
So Sam's point is Sam's
all right. So it'll just.
If people leave.
If you have.
I just want to be clear about what we're discussing because I don't know how long you've been here. Maybe you have been here for the whole time, so I'm not trying to insult your intelligence, but I just want to be clear about what. Go ahead. Sam's point is like, white people leave, we get, what's the title of the movie, Sam? Something in Dust, Empire of Dust. Is that what he's called it?
Yeah.
Okay, it's like if the Westerners leave, then we get basically a whole bunch of incompetent Africans who don't know how to use the machinery, who don't know how to mine anything, don't show up to work on time, completely disorganized. They can't utilize the infrastructure in any way. Okay, and they don't produce even close to the same output as was produced by the Westerners when they had control over the resources and the land. Okay, he's saying. And just to be clear, he's saying that in response to the gentleman Al, who's saying, actually, we the Westerners should leave, and so I assumed, I inferred from that sort of that dispute they were having, I inferred from that what Al meant is like kick all the Westerners out. Okay, I misunderstood him. What he's saying is no, exploitation has to stop, but we should now strike up a partnership. And he's using Rwanda as this like case study. He said, look at the success of Rwanda. They did it by kicking out the West in air quotes, but by that he means essentially just partnering with the West. And I said, in what capacity did the West quote unquote remain? So previously, this is the loose kind of structure of the deal as I understand it, where it's like they pretty much own everything and they're not paying any real corporate tax. They're completely exploiting all of the indigenous population there, and actually they're like destroying the environment, all that kind of shit, toxic waste. They don't give a fuck because it's not their land, and they reap all the benefits, all the profits, okay? And now you're saying, hey, let's restructure this deal. And clearly he's saying Rwanda did that. And I'm just asking, how exactly did Rwanda do that? Like, how did the West remain? In what capacity did they remain? And how did, Rwanda profit from it? What kind of deal was struck with the Rwandans specifically? Because that's the success story, and I just want to know about that. Does that make sense?
Right. So, are you familiar with coltan? Do you know what coltan is?
Yeah, it's like the stuff for batteries, right?
Okay. So, Rwanda has one of the biggest coltan mines in the world in Tanzania. Okay? This is a mine that they own, but they partnered with a Western company. The Western company they're leasing it from them. So the people that are employed are locals and natives. It's owned by Rwanda, and so it's a partnership in profits too as well. I think Rwanda gets 30% of the profits or some shit like that. I can't remember the exact number. But the people employed are employed through actual means that are respected under international law. It's owned by Rwanda, so Rwanda is the company that owns it, and then they lease it out to an American company that actually I think that one's owned. At least to a Belgian company, I believe. But they lease it to a Belgian company to where it's like a mutual benefit to where everybody profits. So that's the way they've constructed that. Whereas in the Congo, it's completely owned by outsiders and foreigners. It's barely any of it is owned by the Congo. There's much of their biggest mines, like the Rubeya mine, which is the biggest mine in the world in terms of coltan. That's actually owned by. They say so. Here's the thing, which is interesting. It's supposedly owned by a Congolese senator, but it's actually not. It's actually owned by an American doctor. And so this is what I'm saying. So the profits, and this is the part you got to understand, right? So that the Rubeya mine is in eastern DRC. So the native people of that area are actually not really benefiting from that. The people benefiting from that are all the way in western DRC, which is Kinshasa. And then most importantly, the people that are benefiting from the most are Americans. That's the part that I'm talking about. That's the difference.
Right.
Did he answer your question?
Sort of, yeah. So the idea is like the structure of the deal is kind of like what I anticipated, which was like they're just going to lease the land. So they own it, they lease it to maybe some kind of foreign company that has the infrastructure to extract the resources and presumably to take it to market. And they presumably impose some kind of tax on them, as well as some kind of fee for the leasehold. What's the idea?
Something like that. That's not the exact structure, but
yeah. No, of course. Look, I'm not a fucking like economist or businessman. I don't know how to structure deals. I'm just saying roughly that's the kind of, just so I can like kind of understand it. But I guess yeah. I mean, your idea is that they somehow wrestle control of the region from all of the different like paramilitary groups and stuff, and then they organize themselves into a society, like into a single sort of nation. Or actually, sorry, you were suggesting to balkanize it, right? That was your idea.
yeah, it needs to be because there is an infinite number of fucking rebel groups in the DRC. Again, in North Kivu and South Kivu alone, there's like 120 rebel groups.
Isn't that like an issue where like, okay, now there's this kind of common shared identity of just like being Congolese, right? And then now, let's say you're someone whose tribe, like whose whatever ethnic group hails from a particular region that isn't resource dense or whatever, resource rich, sorry, I should say. It seems like it's a pretty, you're getting the short end of the stick if you're from that region, and they say, okay, this is how we're going to carve it up. We're going to say this ethnic group is indigenous to this territory, and therefore you're going to be in this territory, right? And then like, if you're someone who's not, I can't remember. There's one of the regions in the Congo which is like the most resource rich. I forget what it's called, but it's like, okay, if you're from there, if your ethnic group's indigenous to that region, then yeah, you just lucked out. Oh, sorry, well, you're in luck. Sorry. Versus like if you're some other ethnic group, and then it's like that just seems to be an infinite source or fuel of like further conflict. It's like, well, no, like, well, we're not accepting that. We're not accepting this.
I'll grant that there. So I'll grant you that there is an element of what you just said. That is true. That does happen where you have these groups of people now that the West is involved and say, hey, this is our land, you're on it. And then you got other groups of people that are like, wait a minute, you're not even from here. You're not really Congolese, so we should be taken for you. Yeah, that does happen. Yeah.
I would say, so that is, it seems like the one nation idea is probably a bit like superior, just in that like, okay, not every portion, segment, whatever, of this like region is going to be resource rich, and because of that, then it seems like you're not getting a fair deal if you're like one of the ethnic groups that is from the resource rich portion.
No, they would. That would be. This would be up to the largest state then in order to take care of those people. And this is the thing: the Congo, is what Mr.
So you're saying like a federation or something?
Well, yeah. So when I said balkanized, I was talking about autonomous regions. They still would be up under the DRC, but doesn't the Kurds have like their own autonomous region, like something like that?
No, I mean they're fighting for their own state.
Yeah, but I thought they had their own autonomous region. Well, if not them, then other autonomous regions, like let's just say like Hong Kong or something like that. That's an autonomous region. Or I think Tibet.
They're fighting to secede right now.
Well, that's happening in the DRC too. To be clear, like the Katanga region is specifically.
I think that's the one. I feel like it begins with a K.
Yeah, they've been.
That's the most resource rich region.
Well, I don't know if I would say that it depends on which resource. They got the most gold. Yeah.
Maybe.
But North Kivu and South Kivu has the most coltan. So it just depends on what you're talking about.
Yeah, but I think correct me if I'm wrong, in terms of like nations that have the largest remaining reserves, isn't it like Congo has the largest gold reserve in the world?
Oil reserve?
In terms of like gold. I could be wrong with that.
Well, it's, maybe, but Uganda
Like
just
in terms
found.
of like unmined gold that still exists.
No, it could be true, but Uganda recently in 2023 found like 13. I can't remember the exact number, so I could be off. But I think they found like $13 trillion worth of untapped gold. You can Google that. So I don't think I don't know now. Like there's been different. Like actually, Somalia just found a lot of oil.
Yeah, I heard that too.
Yeah, so there's been a lot of
That's like in Somaliland, right?
Yeah, it's been you know. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I disagree with it. Yeah, I think that's like I've heard like that's like fuel for like further conflict between the. Because I think like Somaliland also wants to secede.
Yeah, they do.
I think it might actually. Sorry, I think it might already be an autonomous region. I'm not 100% sure.
It is. But it's not a separate state yet. But it is the autonomous region. Yeah. But let me just land with this point. So the problem is the biggest issue is this: because of the government is unstable and corrupt, there are a tremendous amount of rebel groups operating in the DRC, including mercenaries, etc. Right? Interesting enough, people don't even know this, but the UN is actually guilty of the most sex trafficking in the fucking DRC, more than any other group. It's the fucking UN. So, look, the truth is there needs to be stability.
Real anti-Semitic organization, man. Right? So,
well, let me just say this. There needs to be the first thing that needs to happen is there needs to be security there, and there's never going to be security in the DRC as long as the government allows all these different people to run amok. So the only way the government can actually manage what's happening in the other parts of the DRC, again, just imagine this. Just think about this for a second. That's the part that people don't realize. Imagine somebody in fucking Ireland trying to manage what's happening in fucking Italy, and they don't even have the infrastructure. You can't do it. It's not possible. So that's what I'm saying. Like you can't. It's just. it's honestly they have to balkanize if you actually want a solution. The problem is the West. They want to protect colonial borders. That's the problem. So it's just
they want to protect colonial interests. That's for sure.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's like a particular borders or whether that's like particular sort of resource or the ability to profit and monopolize a particular resource. I guess that's going to be like probably their primary concern. When we say the West, I mean ultimately it's reducible to, like I said, like all these kind of individual interests. Like I doubt there's a senator who's like petitioned by some representative of some corporation who ultimately doesn't give a fucking shit about coal town or bauxite or whatever the fuck else. Like they don't give a shit, bro. They care about winning their next campaign, winning their next election, or whatever it is. Or fucking whatever kind of means of embezzling funds or fucking after dinner speaking engagements they're going to be afforded when they like retire and stuff like that's what they care about. And then those individuals are the ones who are responsible for putting the wheels in motion of like all these different like coups and fucking deposing of different governments and what have you and sort of puppet regimes and stuff.
Yeah, no, that's true. But I think to finalize, the issue in this is when I say kick out the West, I'm simply referring to the West. Not only are they more interested in their interests, but they don't have enough understanding or care to actually solve the actual issue. So, for example, the solution to the issue would cause more problems for the West. Like it's gonna raise the prices for phones. It's gonna raise prices for all your electronics and stuff like that. And the West doesn't want that. So therefore, they're going to do everything in their power to not actually do the right solution. So that's the standstill that we're at. And if we were able to give the solutions based upon the way Africans would want to do it, then this will make prices go up. gotta be able to, you gotta have the right goals and aims, in order to do that. Because as long as the goals and aims continue to remain the same, we're going to sit here and say the same thing. Oh my gosh, the DRC is playing for the resources, and so therefore they can't, man, blah, 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 blah. Bullshit, they can't.
You know what really gets my goat is when I hear Sam's critique of the black community, which pretty much pisses me off. You got critiquing
Concrete. In the Matrix Street.
I'm at Costco. Do you hear me?
Living a suburban American life.
I mean, ChatGPT says some interesting things.
Hey, man.
Hey, we still out here, dog.
Those two things, they're massive.
ChatGPT does say some interesting things about
My people die for this.
Like, bottom line, it says both countries sought to end exploitative colonial practices. Rwanda did it by bargaining hard but honoring deals, got roads, smelters, and 7% growth, whereas Zimbabwe tried to seize first, organize later, and got shrinking farms, fleeing capital, and a currency people treat like a joke. And so I guess it just really does matter, what you do. I mean, it says the starting playbook of Rwanda was invite, regulate, skim a cut, built up the Rwandan Development Board as a one-time stop shop, cleaned up graft, I don't know what that is, and tells every foreign miner partner with a local firm, process or here, pay taxes on time.
Graft means bribery.
I see. And then Zimbabwe, grab, redistribute, punish, fast-track land seizures, and the 51% indigenization rule, forced majority of local control of most of those firms. Enforcement was often violent or arbitrary. Treatment of capital. Rwanda keeps the door open, registered investment commitments, hard wires, local benefit. Minerals must be refined, at least concentrated in country. Big powders go through public e-procurement. Where Zimbabwe, policy U-turns, indigenization partially repealed 2018, mutated in parts of mining, then tweaked again, spooked investors. U.S. State Department still tags regulatory risk is very high. Zimbabwe has more corruption, apparently, much more. Rwanda's GDP per capita has more than doubled since $2,300 to $800.
Yeah, by the way, just to be clear, Rwanda started from zero in 1994. It's important to understand that. They literally, they started from zero, below zero, because everybody left Rwanda in 1994.
Sam doesn't care about.
I mean, I'm very open. I want African countries to do well, and if we have models of how countries can do well, I would love it if the Congo just copied what Rwanda did well, and so that they can do well. Everyone benefits from a richer world.
And I want to just do well too, man. I wish they'd get their shit.
Hey, by the way, hold on. This who you was talking about earlier, Sam?
Yeah.
Oh shit! What's going on between y'all?
Well, concrete.
Sam thinks he's
concrete
okay.
cries and moans when he's
Hold on, let me respond to him.
Then he's
I went first. So, Sam wants.
He cries and moans when I call him
Sam.
Semite.
Oh, you gotta let me go, bro.
No, I'm gonna go, and then you can go second. So he cries and moans when I call him an anti-Semite. But then I'd be like, "Hey, Sam, but the Jews control all these major institutions, and they're fucking it up, and they're all doing it for their own selfish ends, and the reason why they're hated is because of their unethical practices. But why are you calling me an anti-Semite, Sam?" Fucking hell. I'll invite you up now.
Sam, do you see the guy in the goo?
The gooman?
Yeah, the Sam 137 guy.
You can go now, Conk.
There's a guy from, a character from, the movie Inglourious Bastards.
Yeah.
Sam is draconian in his moderation. He doesn't abide by his own rules of not over talking. He also flexes his might on helpless people, all on the internet. Now imagine if there were like real stakes, um, in the balance, and this wasn't just the internet. He'd probably do some of the same stuff, right? Not abide by his own rules, marginalize people who have dissenting opinions, so on and so forth, right? So while he tries to defend the Jews, he engages in the behavior that they're accused of. And then it's just a matter of shaming. Oh, you're an anti-Semite. But when you talk about black criminal statistics, you're not a racist, right? You're just somebody reporting the news. Oh no, double standard?
I mean, it is funny that like both of us are stereotypes of our people. I'm a person who's trying to control the media, control dissenting voices, and a fast-talking Jew who's a frame lord. And you're a loud, aggressive black man who barges into interactions with very little subtlety.
It's almost as if maybe some stereotypes are true.
That being said, I don't think that the Jews are responsible. I don't think it's the Jews' horrible behavior is what causes people to hate them, because the things that they're accused of is often the dumbest shit in the world, like stealing organs, poisoning wells, draining blood of people. Like stupid stuff.
How can I say to Caleb the other day in the chat? I was like, fucking. He said, Himothy's here. He's about to make the conversation all about Meta and himself. And I responded, which I'm doing right now, to be fair, so I kind of vindicated him. But then I was like, then I responded like, oh, Caleb's here. Oh, he's about to offer some apologetics for baby murder. And he was like, I don't apologize for baby. He's like, I don't apologize for the murder of babies. And I responded to that with, no, you just drink their blood. And he's like, I got you. See, blood Bible. I knew you were an anti-Semite. Checkmate.
Wish you didn't see that one coming.
Sorry, guys. It's an opportunity to make it up.
Now, Timothy, you've got a beautiful voice, and I love hearing you talk, but you're always talking about yourself.
Yeah, I'm like, Kayla's such a doll. I can't believe she said that about me. I'm still reeling from that.
Okay, I talk to Ethan about the perfidy of Jews all the time, because when he makes these criticisms, what?
Nice, I love that word. Perfidious, I love that word.
Yeah, so when he talks about the perfidy of Jews, he's like literally has empirics, he's giving studies, and I'm willing to talk about it because I'm not afraid of the truth. But concrete, when you come to these conversations, you say some sort of unsubtle shit. You don't got studies, bro. You ain't got fucking data, bro. Bring the data and then we'll talk. Okay? When I talk about my fucking crime stats, I got them fucking updated up to 2025. I got. Hey, did you hear the new drop? The new Department of Justice just dropped some fucking files on you. I got the new releases. So get your data up and then we'll.
Yeah, bro, I got the stats too, bro. I got the expulsion stats. I got the outproportioned positions in different hierarchies. I got the tunnels.
Yeah, those evil tunnel diggers. Those evil tunnel diggers. Because we all know digging holes is so bad. We all know that. We go to the.
Yeah, it was just some kids playing around, moving tons of dirt.
Concrete's at the beach and he sees kids like digging holes, and he's like, "What the fuck are these fucking kids doing?"
Fans obviously never digged the trench before, because when you start, 15 minutes later, you will be quitting, if not sooner. These kids, they're digging entire tunnels for funsies.
There may be some violations to the law because the people who own the property own the airspace as well as the mineral rights underneath the property. So that's a thing.
So I better bring back that dirt.
I buried my dead cat.
Bring me my dirt back. Bring me my dirt back.
The last hole I dug was digging a grave for my cat, and that was I didn't enjoy it. It was like the wood, the dirt was full of roots and stuff. It was tough dirt. It's not easy. So yeah, I would go digging for fun.
probably just wanted more land in their property. Is that the craziest hypothesis in the world?
Why couldn't the best people on Earth come up with a better excuse than the kids were playing around?
Yeah, like, concrete. You know what I don't get? Like, unless you're an Israelite, like your God loves these people, right? He chose them. Why you be hating on them?
I think he
Like, you
offered.
should be looking up to them.
Well, I don't know about that, but I know he offered some criticisms as well. So I guess we'd have to say that God of the Old Testament is also, in fact, he's probably the, oh no, I'm going to stop right there.
No, look, listen. Unless you think Lion is right, ultimately, if it comes down to it, for real, like, he's choosing Sam over you every day of the week. Like, if Sam does the right thing, you do the right thing, he's got an actual obligation to Sam.
Yeah, he's got obligations to Sam. That doesn't mean he doesn't have obligations to me as well. If you, my word abides in you, and you abide in my word, you should ask for what you want, you shall receive. So I just take it that Jesus is telling the truth, and I'm good.
But you mean Jesus, Sam's uncle?
Yeah, Sam's uncles. He put me up. I've got tons of Jewish friends. I told you about that. Sam's argument fails like spectacularly. And he knows it. That's the crazy part.
What's my argument?
You guys, Concrete is not as loud as you guys were saying he was. He's not as loud as you guys were saying he was earlier today.
What do you mean, you guys? Concrete's my guy.
Alright, but
no, they were just saying he was loud.
Is Concrete a loud gentleman? This is the question that D is asking.
Wow.
I said he doesn't seem loud to me.
Wow, that's how you try to do my dog? God dang, man. He's right. You perfidious, mendacious, duplicitous, dishonest, skullduggerous. You say chicanerous, I'm gonna make it out. Fuck it. we just throw an OUS on anything. Just fixing them.
Concrete.
At least to fix them words.
Concrete both has a loud microphone and is loud himself. It's like it's a double win.
Jews made me do it.
Yeah, it's like there's like some Hespera troll somewhere. It's like cranking his mic volume up.
I should, one of these days, plug in my microphone, just a god mic on you fools.
Yeah, I was listening to some shit where they were like, basically, Mossad has infiltrated like the entire upper apparat of fucking Hezbollah, like in terms of like all the replaced, like, you know, leadership, all the replacement. Sorry, the entire like replacement leadership, basically, or like a significant portion of the replacement. It's like fucking insane when you think of it. There's like some council where they all vote. It's like, it's like before, it's like, who votes to support Iran? It's like, say aye, and everybody's like 10 people like, aye. Like now, it's like 9 European-looking Hezbollah leaders. No, we vote no. Protect the Lebanese people, we say.
Mossad might be
really staying yucky, Ezra.
Mossad might be the most competent organization in like the last 50 years. Like, goddamn, they're competent. They get shit.
No, they're like they're the most active fucking intelligence organization in the world, bro. It's like who votes to save Iran and to purge the region of this evil rogue superpower in Israel. Bobby, why would we go to war with Israel? Why would we go to that? The Lebanese people don't need this right now. That's fucking hilarious. It's funny that people are reporting on it as well. Like imagine if you're like a Hezbollah commander who has access to foreign press, like to foreign newspapers and shit. He's reading that like, Mossad has infiltrated Hezbollah. That is crazy, bro.
That is fucking crazy.
Dude, when Mossad took out the testicles of all Hezbollah, I was like, God damn, they're gonna get shit done. Like, I want them to, like, maybe they should be in charge of, like, getting AI to be, like, aligned. We need, like, the most competent people in the world.
Didn't I send you the thing about the human targeting machines? They're already out here just doing crazy shit with AI.
So you guys are saying that Hezbollah has been neutralized? Is that what you're saying?
I mean, pretty much. I mean,
so why are they still saying that Hezbollah is the cause of terrorism then?
No, I'm saying like in this current conflict. Yeah, in this current conflict with Iran, it's basically like.
So like within the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, as in like this most recent attack is meant to be big as a result of the fact that they've neutralized their like nearest Iranian proxy, but I mean, I don't know. I mean, who knows? Maybe you'll just see this like volley of rockets being launched by Hezbollah in the coming day. You know, maybe like like all of the Israeli moles are just gonna give like specific coordinates to like the air defense systems. Be like, we're gonna fire these rockets on this day, and then Bobby, I finally decided today we're gonna strike Israel. Khamenei needs us.
What happened to the CIA talent? The CIA used to be doing some cool shit back in the day, like overthrowing governments and like.
No, it's like their hands are tied. Like, cause like even though like I'm saying somewhat tongue in cheek, like they kind of have to at least look like they're like observing kind of human rights, laws and shit. Whereas like Israel, I mean,
I was watching The Blacklist the other day, and it looks as if they are like in cahoots with each other from that TV show.
What, Israel and Mossad?
And Mossad and the CIA. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. In that, like Mossad controls the CIA.
I mean, look,
you guys know the CIA you tried to do the experiment with psychedelics to see if they could like mind control people. They also tried to connect, see if they could contact the spirit portals, see if they could use that for like astral projection for spying, like back when the CIA was doing cool shit,
Like, and then like all they succeeded in doing was like making Ted Kaczynski trans.
Yeah, exactly.
Yo, Timothy, let me ask you this: when you look at the behaviors of Israel, do you get the feeling that this is like well thought out stuff, or it's desperate? Okay. So you don't think that any of this is like a little helter skelter, a little impromptu, based on the different like political winds in the region and the different whims of Bibi?
I was
think it's
listening to
all
the
just.
other day, and they were saying like had Kamala been elected, it would have been basically would have wrapped up. They would have sped up the timeline. This would have happened all a lot sooner. Apparently, like in fact, they're saying that because I guess they want to say the evidence, given their like kind of an evolving narrative coming from America, is that because like Rubio apparently came out initially after the attack and said America had no involvement or no full knowledge of it, and Israel operated unilaterally and blah blah blah. So like, and then like Trump comes out and says like, oh, you better do a deal now. So it's like I guess the evidence there is that like Israel are kind of operating completely independently. It was like basically calling the US for support whenever they need it. I don't know how true that is. I don't really like study the kind of internal politics or the relationship between the United States and Israel. That being said, apparently basically because like MAGA, like basically Trump campaigned on this kind of like anti-war MAGA rhetoric, that basically it makes it kind of a little bit more difficult for him to basically be super hawkish on like a war with Iran versus like someone like Kamala and stuff just doesn't have those kind of commitments. Like they can just like, just purport to be completely interested in, preserving democracy and blah, blah, whatever bullshit and, see Iran as this kind of threat and, they're going to be, they're violating the nuclear, and then apparently like it was supposed to be the jewels in Trump's crown getting like this proliferation treaty or whatever with Iran, this whatever, over the line and stuff. So like basically, I think Israel, this has always been Israel's strategy. Well, it seems to me, at least this has been told to me, that this has always been Israel's strategy. But in fact, the only reason that they kind of have drag their feet a bit is because of Trump basically getting elected. So basically, like, a lot of people have the opinion that actually Trump's going to sort of give them carte blanche. In fact, they may at some point need to drag America into the war, and Trump's going to be far less amenable to that, given what he campaigned on, versus like someone like Kamala, who I guess doesn't have those